Committee of Adjustment. In accordance with, sorry, thanks very much. So we're just calling ourselves to order, and we're following sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is called to order. Now, just a brief explanation about what the committee does. The committee considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. However, before we proceed any further, we want to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I'm going to proceed with a bit of a lengthy introduction, but it's important because it relates to our process here. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. Meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connected with their computer or tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and they have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you'll be unmuted then, and the moderator will allow in one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak, because sometimes we do get reverberation. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during the 5-minute allotted speaking time. At other times, your video will be disabled and you'll be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist control during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Word about decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and a written request for a decision by email. Because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, they'll be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you don't agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, which is known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, Minister of Municipal Affairs, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. You'll find appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. All right, a word about our hearing procedure today and how we'll be proceeding in that respect. I'm going to call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee doesn't require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I'll comment when you're reaching that 5-minute threshold. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters that are outlined in the application. So just in terms of order, the applicant or agent will proceed first, and then we'll make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation, and when all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. That'll really be the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. All right, just some other preliminary matters as we deal with our agenda today. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I see that there are minutes that have been confirmed. I propose making a motion to adopt those minutes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. It's the minutes of January the 17th, 2024.
All right, panel members, I'm going to move that we adopt the minutes of that January meeting. All in favor? Okay, looks like we have unanimous approval there. And I'm just going to mention we've got 2 members here physically this morning before you, and 2 are coming in virtually. Okay. Also, members, since we're addressing personal issues, are there any declarations of interest or conflict matters relating to this to items on this agenda? Do you have any declarations to declare?
No.
No.
All right, seeing none. Fine. And Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I understand there are no deferral requests before us this morning, or has anything come up?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I see none for this morning, as well as there are no files to be closed.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. All right, then. We can move to item 1 on this morning's agenda. The address is 50 Gerrard Street East. And I'm just going to take a moment on each of these applications just to read out the purpose. I'll tell you what materials we've received. So, in respect of 50 Gerrard Street East, the purpose of the application is to alter the development standards for a residential building approved under Site-Specific Zoning Bylaw 1070-2004 by the Ontario Land Tribunal. And the changes by updating the mechanical systems, including new rooftop enclosed elements and conduit risers at exterior facade of building, which requires modification of the exterior cladding to extend approximately 140 millimeters beyond the existing cladding. In connection with that, the committee has received the following material: copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 1 photograph of trees on the subject property, 36 photographs of the subject property, and these were received December 13th. And finally, the site-specific bylaw itself, 1070-2004.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we only have the agent speaking on this item, so we will unmute them at this time.
Thank you. Morning. Is the agent applicant there?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. This is Joel Gerber of 23 Doncaster.
Yes.
If I could just make a very, very brief presentation. I hope that it's a very straightforward application. The existing building is being retrofitted to accommodate heating and cooling to the student residences, which is overdue. The architectural implications of the facade adjustment are very minor, and due to the very site-specific zoning, we had to proceed with the public consultation process associated with the committee. The drawings, I guess, speak for themselves, and I don't have too much to add.
It's interested in what's the cladding made of? What's it like? Is this metal cladding that's going around HVAC systems, etc.?
Yeah, so it's an existing 12-story building, terrace towards the back. It's an existing EFIS or stucco-clad building, and the new proposed risers are to be clad with EFIS or stucco as well to tie in aesthetically.
All right. All right, members, any questions of this applicant? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir. We'll just see if there's any further speaker on this.
Through
Thank you
Mr.
kindly.
Chair, there are no further speakers.
No further speakers, all right. Well, committee members, I would like to just discuss this amongst ourselves. It does not protrude very much. It's some additional cladding. Do you wish to make a motion concerning this application? Yes, thank you.
All right, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and good morning. I think this is a very technical issue. There's really no impact on any additional neighbors or anything of that sort. So I think this is a very technical item, and I don't see any issues with not approving this application without any conditions.
All right. I'll take that as a motion, and you can have a second
Yes.
to that motion, please. Get my,
I'll second that.
all right, thanks very much. Thank you, Aaron. All right, all in favor, as approved, no conditions. All right. Item number 2, and I'll try to move along as we can. Item number 2 relates to property at 216 GLEBEMOUNT Avenue. Said to be in the beaches area. I'm just going to see if there are some further materials, and there are. All right, the purpose of this application on GLEBEMOUNT to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing a complete second-story addition, a side south two-story addition, and a rear ground floor deck. Committee had this before it, these types of communications, a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 2 photographs of trees on the subject property, and those are received November 28th, 23. And there's a staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry, dated January 24th, 2024.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we only have the agent speaking on this application, so we will unmute them at this time.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. Do you have the applicant or the agent for the applicant online?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, Chairman and committee. My name is Wei Mao, as applicant for the owner. So basically, this application is for the second story on the existing bungalow. Our neighbor, 214 and 218, already to build the 2-story dividing. So the owner tried to get the new 2-story dividing without any further setback. So all the setback is existing.
Okay, thank you. And sir, are you aware that urban forestry is suggesting a condition that would accompany this approval? You familiar with that urban forestry condition?
Yeah, no.
Sorry, you're saying you know. Sorry, you're saying urban forestry has a condition, and that is acceptable to you, is it?
No condition. Urban forestry, there's no condition for that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a condition from Urban Forestry.
Yes.
Number 2.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. I just wanted to, I just want to call up the variances themselves. I've got it right here. Yes, 8 variances being sought. Various issues, often is building depth, building length, some side yards, and FSI. Members of the panel, any comments or remarks, or do you wish to make a motion? Yes.
If I may, Chair. I just have one question before I move on. To the applicant, you've got a little balcony at the rear of the proposed structure. It looks like it's raised. Is it something that has an overlook issue to your neighbor? If it does, I certainly would like to make sure that you have a privacy screening of 1.5 meters. Sorry, that's a question to agent.
Yeah, can you see it again?
Okay, at the rear of the house, you've got a deck.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's above, I'm not quite sure what the height would be above grade.
Yes.
Would it have overlook with, as far as your neighbor's properties are concerned?
No, I don't think so.
So, but committee is suggesting maybe a privacy screen might be helpful there, to maybe a height of 1.5 meters, as my colleague said. Would you be willing to put in such a screen to allow more privacy to the neighbor? That's
Yeah,
a yes or
I
no
don't think
question.
I don't think it's any factor to my neighbor.
But it is above grade.
Yeah, it's above grade. Yeah, a little bit.
Can you tell me how much above grade?
Okay, let me check. Okay, hold on, let me check.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is almost 1 meter higher
1 meter
from
above. And if you had a fence in between, which would be the height of a fence would be what, about 2 meters?
The fence is over the 1 meter, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if your fence is 1 meter and this deck is about 1 meter above grade, I think you're going to have overlook issues. So I think it's only on the one side, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to see which side it's on. I can't quite see which side. Does your deck go right across the width of the house?
Yeah, yes.
It's a full width, in which case
Yeah.
it would be on both sides. So I'd like to put in a condition that you have a privacy fence, a privacy screening of 1.5 meters on both sides of the rear deck. Outside of that, I think while you've got 8 variances, from what I can see, most of them are fairly small.
So the agent applicant can just respond to that. Then you've heard from the committee a couple of concerns, one being a privacy screen or fence, and secondly, that there is an urban forestry condition that would be attached to any approval. So do you understand that situation, sir?
Yes, sure. Okay.
Members of the panel, do you wish to make any further comments or take action, make a move, make a motion?
Certainly, Chair, if I may just continue, I'd like to move a motion to approve the application as while there may be a number of variances requested, they're individually quite small and quite acceptable. The only 2 conditions I'd like to add is, of course, forestry number 2, and a privacy screening on both sides of the rear deck to a height of 1.5 meters.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Yes, it is. All right. Mr. Wilkins. All in favor, ma'am? In favor of that? It's unanimous. You have approval subject to those conditions, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Moving on then, staff and members, to item number 3. The address is 611R Old Weston Road. And here's the purpose of this application. It's to replace the existing one-story ancillary building, a semi-detached garage, with a new two-story semi-detached dwelling with a cantilevered second story abutting the existing right-of-way. The existing one-story ancillary building, a semi-detached garage, will be demolished. Committee's had before it the following communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 4 photographs of the subject property received November 29th last year, a cover letter from Michael Swan as agent, a past decision of the Committee of Adjustment in 2023 that affects the subject property. We also have a planning rationale from Michael Swan, agent, that was received December 7th. And finally, we have presentation materials in addition from Michael Swan, the agent. In terms of the city itself, then, we have commenting agencies such as, we've got a staff report from Development Planning and Review, Transportation Services, which was received January 24th. And finally, there are 6 photographs in concern/interest from William McCarty, who is at 625 Old Western Road, and that was received January 23rd.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online speaking for this application, as well as one speaker in opposition at the address 625 Old Western Road. So we'll unmute the agent at this time.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Michael, you're
Hello?
unmuted.
Hi, I was asked by the Jacob to tell the technician to look for a folder, a late folder, because I have a PowerPoint presentation. That was submitted January the 25th. Yes, that's it. Yes, I guess I should identify myself. My name is Michael Swan, and I'm the agent for the owners of 611R Old Western Road.
And could you give us just your municipal address just to keep the record straight?
Yes, I reside at 104 Seton Drive in Aurora.
Thank you.
Thank you. First slide. I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present an application on behalf of my clients. Next slide. The proposal was presented to the committee that was sitting last August. Although a favorable report was presented by Toronto Planning, the proposal was unfortunately refused and circumstances prevented an appeal to occur. The owners, however, heard the concerns of the committee and have addressed them in this application. 611R Old Western Road is a small, irregularly shaped, independent lot, which, along with 5 similarly sized properties and 8 additional larger properties to the east and west, were established many years ago. Next slide. Access to each of these properties is accomplished by traveling on a right-of-way that extends from Turnberry Street and culminates in a dead end. Aerial photos taken in 1947 show the right-of-way, but although an extensive record search has been conducted, the owner of the right-of-way has not been discovered. Next slide. The owner of 611R Old Western Road wished to replace the existing non-conforming building and use of a garage and replace it with a new dwelling building, which is a permitted R use. Next slide. The proposed dwelling will have a smaller first floor footprint than the existing building. The second floor maximizes on the potential floor area while providing a protective canopy for the entrance. Limiting the number of stories to 2 allows the design to blend in with the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide. There are two significant limitations under this application that have to be considered. First, the size of the lot and the permitted floor area, and second, the fact that the lot does not front onto a street. This property has a unique lot, location, and design, which in turn requires a unique way of looking at the established rules. Recent policy changes and directives at both the provincial and municipal levels are promoting and even pushing for innovative housing solutions. The owner's proposal addresses the most important issue, new rental accommodation. This application requires the commenting city departments and the members of the committee to think outside the box. Because of the diminutive size of the property, a large portion of the lot is required to accommodate this modest house design. The proposed building is a mere 41.3 square meters, but it would provide enough space for someone to live comfortably. Next slide. As previously mentioned, the site does not front onto a street, but rather a right-of-way. The City of Toronto has a laneway bylaw that allows laneway buildings that also do not front onto a street. That bylaw cannot be used in this situation because access is accomplished through the use of a right-of-way, and also because the subject property does not have an existing additional home on it to require services from. To remedy the latter, the owners are proposing to, at their own expense, introduce new services beneath the existing right-of-way to allow the proposed dwelling at 611R Old Western Road to connect to the existing services in Turnberry Street. As previously mentioned, there appears to be no records of ownership of the right-of-way, which makes satisfying the condition of approval made by Transportation Services impossible. Since ownership cannot be determined and the requested easement created, it is respectfully suggested that either the condition attached to the Transportation Services report be waived, or that the City of Toronto assume ownership of the right-of-way to convert it into a laneway. Next slide. The items listed in the zoning notice are technical and could be waived by the uniqueness of this application. Given the great need for new rental housing, I believe that the creation of the new dwelling outweighs the zoning deficiencies associated with this design. The owners of 611R Old Western Road and I hope that you, the committee members, recognize the potential for this design when considering this application. If that is possible, then you will be able to consider the requested variances as minor and reasonable and meets the 4 tests. The proposal will provide additional rental housing in an R district while stimulating the local economy. I believe that, based on my report in this presentation, sufficient proof is being presented for approval and is requested that the committee grant the minor variances sought. Next slide. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just want to, on the right-of-way, just want to speak to that. I'm a little surprised to say here that it's impossible to find. I've hoped you had a lawyer take a look at the title, because there would have to be, when it was set up, there would have to be a property that's benefited from the right-of-way. In legalese, that's called the dominant tenement. So there'd be a dominant and servient tenement, and the servient tenement would essentially be, what appears to be, a private right-of-way, and it's certainly not a public lane.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Well, all records that have been researched by the owner's lawyers and also member of the city have not been able to find ownership or records of ownership.
Okay, thanks for that response. You mentioned transportation, and there is a transportation staff report. I'm just going to call it up, but it does relate to that same issue that we were just talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So give me a moment, please. Yeah. Just I don't know if other members can assist me, but as I recall, transportation was asking that a number of variances would have to be tied into this issue of securing a right-of-way.
Through you,
Right.
Mr. Chair, the memo from Transportation Services is presented on our screen.
Thank you very much. I was
Yes.
just checking for mine, yes, okay.
May I,
So their concern was they would need to satisfy the following conditions for variances 2, 3, 5, and 6. And
Right.
that's to secure an easement with the right-of-way owner abutting the property. The existing right-of-way on the east side is not public, says the applicant must indicate an access easement in place. So just given that memo and also your remarks, sir, it seems that we haven't tied down the right-of-way. So there's an access issue, I think, relating to your property. But we can leave it there. I don't know if you want to make any further submission, otherwise we'll hear from the next speaker.
may I comment on that report?
Yes?
The author of that report quotes items 2, 3, 5, and 6. Well, it's not really technically correct. There is no item 6. And items 2 and 3 relate to side yard setbacks for the property. They don't have anything to do with the actual use of the right of way. It's only 5 that deals with services to the property.
Just taking a look, sorry, there is a variance 6
And 7.
and 7, yes, yeah.
I apologize.
Okay, yeah. So I think there are real issues there. Not sure how you might want to proceed. I think we would like to deal with this issue this morning, but I suppose you might want to defer just so some of these issues that we've just discussed relative to the right-of-way can be explored more fully, but it's up to you.
I believe my client would ask for a deferral. And they will need to search out more thoroughly any potential ownership of the right-of-way. And that way, whether, I doubt the original owner is alive, but whoever might be on that list of ownership can be contacted and negotiated with.
All right, I'd like to hear from the next speaker, and we can discuss from there. Panel members, any comments at this stage? Yeah, yes, here.
If I may just ask a quick question, Chair, before the person in opposition speaks.
Yes, thank you.
To the applicant, I remember this application coming to the committee previously, and it was refused. So can you tell me what has changed between the refusal last year and this application? Has anything changed in it?
Well, the actual design of the building has not changed. When that design was developed, it was developed through suggestions through planning so that it mirrored those things that would be required for laneway designs, such as a sloped roof and also a green roof, a sloped roof at the back, on the west side. But the actual changes are the introduction to a report for managing the construction of the building, because that seemed to be a concern by people, neighbors. And
if I may just interrupt you for a moment, Agent, I'm sorry to interrupt you. In terms of just the reasons for the refusal the last time, are the variances that caused the refusal the last time, are they still in this particular application?
yeah,
And I think they were all related to transportation.
As far as the decision goes, the decision was very vague and limiting as to saying any justifiable reasons other than they didn't like it, you know.
I beg to
Oh,
differ.
okay.
But I think I'll leave it to the chair to allow for the person in opposition to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
just have a very quick question. Are you looking for deferral?
Pardon me?
Are you looking for deferral?
Yes.
You want to defer, so we will have to ask the opposition if they agree to defer.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. So if we could move then to the next
We're not
speaker.
talking about the merit of the case. Thanks.
Madam Deputy Secretary, can we let that person in?
Yes, William McCarty?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I do not agree to deferral. So the last time that that Michael brought this, the question was there are numerous questions. One of which, how's he going to get service to the unit? And he said that he just now said that he's going to put the services down the laneway. There's one with this property. I can concur with what he says, that there's the ownership has not been determined. When we did our, my name is Will McCarty. I live at 625 Old Weston Road. I have each one of these garages is a separate municipal property number from the actual unit itself. So the person that owns the garage does not live directly behind the actual garage itself. So 613 does not own that, and 613 rear, the property in front of that, does not own that. It's kind of separated in that way. But the issue is that there's no actual owner on site living on these row of houses that owns this particular unit. So he has to get services down the laneway. And there's numerous problems with that. The laneway, the right of way, sorry, itself, like you said, doesn't have particular owner. When I talked to my lawyer about this, he said that all we would have to, if there was ever a dispute, we just have to prove that we're actively using it. And between 10 to 15 people who live on that strip actively use it concurrently. But the other issue is that if they're going to do construction down the laneway, there's several issues with construction on the laneway. First, the laneway is unimproved. It maybe have been paved 50 years ago, but that pavement has since turned to rubble. It's mostly covered, like people mostly cover it and fill it in with gravel or dirt or what have you. It's broken up. And so if he's planning on digging up that dirt, then what is he going to put in place of that? Is he going to pave it over? Is he going to pave it over all the way to the end of the laneway? Also, when he disturbs the laneway, I don't see an application or a consultation with the Toronto District School Board. I called the school, which owns the property which is directly west. There's a parking lot right there next to the right-of-way on the right side of the screen there. And they haven't, no one I spoke to there said that they had any consultation on this. So I'm not sure if he would need to get, if he's going to have construction equipment in the general area, if he's gotten permission from the TDSB to block off their access, because I guess the particular end of the laneway, it's not really delineated as to which side is this, the TSB, and which side is ours. Also, to note, there's about 15 people who use this laneway. If he does construction down the laneway, where are these people going to park? I know he has this person hasn't consulted with any of the neighbors. No one's knocked on the door. No one's asked for...
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're not dealing with the merits of the application. What's on the floor at this time is a deferral request. So to the owner of 625 Old Weston Road, are you in favor of a deferral, yes or no?
Aye, sir, you're there?
Yes.
Are you in favor of a deferral, yes or no?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Are you are you in favor of a request for a deferral?
No, I am not.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to the agent.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed as the agent.
So I just want to ask some questions. So
Oh,
I think you've heard the neighbors concerned.
mhm.
If we grant you the deferral, would you be able to address that when you come back?
I would definitely attempt to answer all the questions. I can even
Not
answer
now,
some.
but I mean to through the time that from now to the next hearing, would you be able to resolve all these questions and issues before you bring it back?
Whether
This
they're
is-
resolvable or not, yes,
You
yes,
will,
I would
right?
say, yes, I will.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I'm in favor to give this applicant one last chance to resolve the problem and bring it back to us, and hopefully he could talk to his neighbor and resolve the concern. And I would like to make a motion to allow it to defer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the property owner here in person. Do you wish to come to the podium to say something? Okay, please approach the podium on this side here.
Okay. My name is Giuseppe Bruno, and I'm the owner of 611R Weston Road. With any construction, when there's a pit that's open, there's metal plates that's put over the surfaces, so access can be granted, no problem. We're not going to be obstructing anyone's flow. In terms of the school, there's a 20-foot fence in between the 20-foot high fence between the properties, between the two lanes. So I don't think there's going to be a concern there, but obviously with anything, with any construction, there has to be some, some due diligence and some safety that has to be taken into account. Transportation. Yeah. So that's basically it. The laneway is in disrepair, so any work that is being done will regrade the lane and make it better than what it is now, that's for sure.
But you have to agree that it's not a public lane or street.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Member Chang, yes, you had a motion that you would put forward a deferral of this matter. Other panel members, do you wish to weigh in or to join in on that motion?
I will second the motion. I think it may make sense for the applicant to consult with the city's engineering to see whether it's possible to get services there. I'm not sure if that is something that could be fruitful to help resolve some of the concerns, but it's something to think about.
All right, motion, all right. All in favor of that motion then to defer this item? All right, that is passed. So the matter is deferred to a future meeting.
All right, it's a win. Deferral's a win.
I'm sorry, Madam Deputy Secretary, I was going to move then to item 4. Glenn,
Yes,
Glenn?
through you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we can move on to item number
All
4.
right. Fine, this is another minor variance application for 40 Glenhurst Avenue. Here's the purpose, is to construct a new 2-story ancillary building, a garden suite with a cantilevered second story in the rear yard. The existing 1-story detached garage will be demolished. Committee has the following communications: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, a revised site plan, floor plans and elevations received January 24th, 4 photographs of trees on the subject property, correspondence from Andrea Lacalmita, agent, and presentations from Andrea. In support, there are 3 form letters in support signed by owners or occupants of the following addresses: 26, 38, and 42 Glenhurst Avenue. And in opposition, there is correspondence from numerous people on Conway Avenue, yes, mostly Conway Avenue and also Glenhurst Avenue.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the owner online representing themselves.
Okay.
And then we have 2 registered speakers in opposition for this item.
Thank you, that's very helpful. All right, can we ask the owner or applicant representing themselves, could you kindly speak up and just give us a very brief summary of your application before committee today?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Yes?
My name is Tommy Tsialtis. I'm the co-owner of 40 Glenhurst. We're a family of 4. I have 2 daughters, an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old, and both my parents reside in the nearby neighborhood. I've been working with an architect, Andrea, to propose a new 2-story garden suite in the rear of my yard for the following 3 reasons. 1, I want an additional stream of income for my family. 2, eventually my family will grow out of the size of our current home and will require additional living space. And 3, as a backup option to house either one of our parents when the time and if the time comes. I will be representing myself today, but the architect has prepared some supplementary information we can refer to in the PDFs. The garden suite will initially act as a rental unit to provide an additional stream of income. Currently, with the housing shortage in the city, my hope is to create a comfortable space that does not resemble a cramped condo life. The requested variances are necessary to our proposed design to create a comfortable 2-bedroom, 2-bath on the 2nd story. The significance of having a 2+2 is to offset the rental costs for individuals who can't afford the current rental pricing on their own in the city. The cost of living is more affordable when the rent can be split amongst 2 people that each have equal private space and pay less overall. We're proposing to construct a 2-story structure. If you turn to page 3, you will see that many of the variances requested result from a desire to maintain the existing setbacks of the structure on the ground floor and to provide adequate headroom for the 2nd story for the unit's residents. The existing structure condition has enough damage all around to warrant major repairs. My proposal to demolish the existing building and rebuild it is a way for me to save on construction costs for my family. Reinforcing the walls underpinning the structure and additional masonry costs will add substantial expense to our renovation budget that I would like to avoid and still be able to build on the existing footprint. The demolition of the structure will also reduce construction time and construction noise in the neighborhood. With the proposed design, you would be able to convert the 1st floor living space back into a garage and maintain a 2+2 with no living room. We believe the overall design to be keeping in the spirit of the city's bylaws and desire to increase density. I'd like to draw your attention to the letters written by the immediate neighbors on Glenhurst to the east and west of my residence, who would be most immediately impacted and are in support of this proposal. I am also aware of several letters written in objection to the proposal from the neighbors in the north of Conway. I have not met with them in person, but I have reviewed all their letters thoroughly with my wife, an architect. While I respect their concerns, we do not believe that complying with the bylaw requirements would greatly change their experience of the proposed unit. In other words, we believe that any impact to the current proposal will have on neighboring properties would be very similar to the impact of a suite constructed in accordance with the zoning bylaws. If you turn to page 5 of the PDF, you'll see we have made efforts to minimize the shadows cast on the neighboring properties to the rear by maintaining a 45-degree angle roof line along the rear property line and adhering to allowable heights and limitations while still maintaining full head height in the rest of the suite and actual usable space. To address some of the soft landscaping, can I turn your attention to the diagrams on page 2? The area of the soft landscaping is asked to be 50% of the remaining area in the backyard. I believe it's calculated between area of the rear building to the property line, but when you subtract the ancillary building and then you subtract the parking spot and the fire route to the building, the existing deck, it limits the property to 15% possible landscaping, which is the max amount of landscaping we are able to provide in hopes to satisfy the variance. Some additional methods that we can take to help with that is a permeable paver or maybe a garden roof. But thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any further questions to the committee that the committee may have.
Members, any questions to the speaker?
If I may, Chair. I wonder if I might just ask, there's a cantilever portion of the second floor. Is that the overhang? Is that an overhang over the garden, the rear garden?
It provides some basically like an awning for the front of the building, so you can get into the building without getting wet.
Is that the portion that's within the garden space? Because, you know, the reason I'm asking is when I look at your proposed structure, it looks longer than the footprint of the existing garage. So is the cantilevered portion that gives that impression?
Yes, it's the cantilever that extends over the existing structure by 3 feet.
Okay.
The first floor is still maintained.
On the existing footprint?
On the existing footprint.
Okay. And the other piece I was going to ask about was I mean, the big concern that I would have with this is the soft landscaping that we have is, I think, your variance number 1. The diagram that you have on the site plan, this proposed one, shows a vehicle parked over, I suppose, like a parking pad.
Yes.
What were you proposing to use as the base for that parking pad? What materials?
I was hoping to eventually use permeable interlocks. Basically, I believe permeable interlocks classify as soft landscaping, yet still maintain the necessary structure to hold parked vehicles without sagging.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, sir, I'll just speak to the matter for a moment. There are 11 variances asked for, and that gives me some pause and concern in the sense of garden suites, as authorized by City Council, has been about 2 years approximately, and when it was set up, then there were certain standards, we call them performance standards, the things that should be met in the bylaw, and you're asking to vary 11 of those. It seems to me a little new in the development game to change those standards at this point. But that's my personal view. Members, any other questions from this gentleman? Otherwise, we'll go to other speakers. Seeing none, all right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll unmute the owners at 37 Conway Avenue.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Ahan Ali and Louise Murphy. We are the owners, co-owners at 37 Conway. Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So we have a few things we wanted to point out. We agree with the chair that 11 variances, even if we concede that each individual variance is minor, if we take 11 minor variances, that to me feels like a major circumvention of the bylaws. We would also like to point out that the variances themselves to us do not seem minor. If the limit is supposed to be 4 meters and we're building a 6-meter structure, that to me is more than 50% of an increase to the height. Similarly, when we think about the distance from the rear property and the east and west property, if the variance is supposed to be, or sorry, the bylaw says you need to be 1.5 meters from the rear property, and this design only puts the property at 0.4 meters, that does not seem minor to us. If the owner is proposing demolishing the property because it saves them money, we should also require the owner in that situation to adjust the existing building to comply with the current bylaws, i.e., The back wall should not be 0.4 meters. It should be 1.5 meters. The east and west walls should be 0.6 meters, not 0.1 and 0.3 meters. This property, for its size and its purpose, is too large to be where it is located. It affects the privacy of all of the rear backyards. It affects the sunlight, limited sunlight that we get. All of the houses on Conway are row houses. We get no light from the east and west of our homes. We rely on the sunlight coming from the south. We feel this is going to set a precedent for large structures, larger than these gardens and properties can handle, and create a fishbowl environment in backyards. We also want to comment on the fact that the variances that are being asked are essentially stacked violations. For example, they are asking for ignoring the A-frame requirements for the roof, but it is already a 6-meter structure when it should be a 4-meter structure. So we feel like we are arguing about variances on things that in the beginning should not be allowed or discussed. Lastly, if you don't have the space to build a garden suite of this size, you should not be allowed to build a garden suite of this size. I understand the need for additional income, but if you don't have the space, we need to be within the bylaws that exist. The owner should look for another property, another location, and leave these properties for the housing and space that they are built for. We don't believe the 4 tests that the committee is asked to review are being adhered to. As we said, we don't believe these variances are minor. Individually and collectively, 11 variances seems way too far. We also believe the general intent is not being maintained. If we're changing a garage to a 2-story garden suite, we need to think about how close that 2-story garden suite is to the surrounding homes. If a garage is only 0.4 meters from another property, maybe that's acceptable. But if we're putting homes and people and skylights that are essentially going to act as windows, we need to rethink how close those properties are to existing properties. That is all.
All right, thank you, sir. Members of the panel, are there any questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, we have a further speaker, yes.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we're going to unmute the owner of 46 Glenhurst Avenue.
46 Glenhurst, thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
My name is Maria Bisola, and I'm at 46 Glenhurst Avenue. I don't have any additional comments. I just want to echo the concerns that already have been raised this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you. See no questions. Is there a further speaker then on this? No?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're going to go back to the owner.
Yes. All right, would the owner come back to the
Hello.
mic? Yes. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Chair, what can I, would you like me to rebuttal?
Yes, exactly. Just those items that have been raised, if you'd speak to those matters.
So out of the 11 variances, I feel that 5 of them, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 10, and number 11, are minor. The asks for the number 7 and 8 of the angular east and west planes are more in regards to the owners of 38 and 42 Glenhurst. And the neighbors in the back have some misconception. The structures aren't limited to 4 meters of height. The 4-meter height is where the angular plane has to begin. The 6 meters is the top of the height of the buildings allowed by zoning in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Furthermore, for items 4, 5, and 6, and 9, the projections of the cantilever and the effects of the cantilever roof, those primarily affect my property. And although we satisfy the zoning laws on the first floor, we do encroach on the second floor. So those are my arguments. And in terms of height, I feel that the landscaping of the neighborhood already has trees in the back that are 20 foot or higher that will hide most of my structure to the north. So yes, that is all.
All right, thank you, sir. Take it there are no further speakers, so members of the panel, I think we should take this into committee for discussion, and if anyone wants to bring forward a motion, I'd be glad to hear it.
So I guess I'll just start
Sorry, go ahead.
by saying that I do agree with. Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry,
can you hear me?
proceed.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Right. I'm just saying that the combined effect of all the variances, particularly the loss of landscape and the angular cut plane, there's a reason why there's a garden suite bylaws coming out after the laneway suite. There's the reason the laneway suite has a laneway between two households, separating them. That gives them a little bit more space between two houses back to back. And I think the development of the garden suite is about creating more livable space within a tighter area at the back. And so it is a little bit more restrictive. And I think we should respect that, because that is how the space was designed, to provide not just to increase the density of one particular lot, but creating a more harmonized area for the whole neighborhood. So the cut plane has a reason to be there, and I think we should not grant approval of that. And same for the landscape. I think that is a huge reduction of soft landscape, and we all know the permeable paving is always the last resort. So although I tend to, like having a high density of housing, but in this case is really too much, from my opinion. I cannot support it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other member wish to make a comment, or can we go to motion?
If I may just
Yes, sir.
put my 2 cents worth in. Thank you, Chair. I think that my colleague Mr. Cheng's comments are quite valid. There's a laneway suite does have this barrier, if you like, or space between the rear of one's property and the rear of the neighbor to the other side. So there's a little bit of a gap. The other piece with both garden suites and laneway suites is this distance between the proposed structure and the actual residence. And as much as we may like to have a garden suite, if the distance, if you're just compressing structures in a space, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself as well as the neighbors. And then it goes against the grain of the intention of the bylaw. So as much as I'd like to approve this application in some ways, I think this one needs to be rethought. So I think it'll be difficult for me to support it.
Mr. Wilkins, any comments?
No, I was persuaded by the submissions of the opposition.
All right, members, as chair, I'm going to move that this application before us be refused. Is there a seconder for that motion? Mr. Wilkins is showing, all right. All right, all in favor then, the motion before us is to refuse this application. I see unanimity. The matter is dealt with and is refused. All right. Moving through our agenda, moving to item number 5, which I just need a few seconds, but it relates to 223 Robina Avenue. So if people associated with that can just stand by, I'm just going to pull up some material. Okay, Robina. Yes, this is also a minor variance application for 223 Robina Avenue, and the purpose is to alter the existing 1 1/2 story dwelling by constructing a second and third story addition, an integral garage, a front covered porch, a rear wood deck, and a rear second story balcony. Committee has before it the following communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a revised site plan and elevations, a revised zoning notice received January 22nd, 24, 15 photographs of the subject property, a covering letter from Raman Sandhu as agent, an earlier decision of the Committee of Adjustment going back to, it looks like 2020. And we have correspondence from Raman Sandhu as the agent, correspondence that he sent in January. And finally, building permit number as stated there affecting the property. In addition to that, then the committee has before it some support, a 5-signature petition in support signed by owners of the following addresses on Robina: 219, 221, 225, 226, and 227. All right, thank you. And Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, then do we have an owner applicant online?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we only have the agent here speaking, no one in opposition or support.
Thank you, that's very helpful. All right, would the agent for this matter on Robina Avenue, would they speak up, please?
Good morning, committee members. I'm Raman Preet, owner/agent for this property. So this property we bought last year. It was bought with approved permits. There was a committee of decision before to build a new house on this property. The permit is attached along with the decision for your review. Because of the distance between the two properties on the right side and the 223 Robina, we plan to do it as an addition. And when we went to change the permit to an addition instead of a new house, we ended up in some of the variances. So even though we are on the same lesser height, same footprint, same interior area, we still ended up in the committee again. And as per the zoning notice, we have the front landscaping, the height of the porch, landscaping, and the GFA. So the GFA, the building, the proposal is exactly same as the new house which is approved. So if we build it as a new house, I don't have to come to committee again. We are just here because of the addition part. So the GFA 0.9 is already approved. I don't know what changed in the calculations, but now they're saying that it is 0.92 with the same footprint. So that is one variance. But other than that, it's a little change in the front yard landscaping and the height of the first entrance to the first floor and the porch. So in our opinion, these variances are minor. And if we get this approved, we can continue building it as an addition, which we really want to accomplish with this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it might be helpful if the applicant goes through the revisions based on the revised zoning review. And if there's an additional variance that was not identified as part of the original public hearing notice that was mailed out, then this application requires deferral because of improper notification. So can the applicant speak to that?
Yeah, so it's the point number 2. We had a conversation with the zoning examiner for this particular application. The proposed front yard landscaping, we asked for more, but he told us that we are a little lower. And the second part to that to that one, which is point number D, it asks for a minimum of 75% of the required front yard softscaping, front yards landscaping as softscaping. So essentially, whatever landscaping percentage I get, I have to keep 75% of it as softscaping. So this part is added later on 23rd, which was not circulated in the original notice that went out. I had a conversation with the zoning examiner for this particular application. We had a discussion, and he told me that, yes, so essentially, point B talks to the total front yard landscaping. So if I get a variance for that, then the percentage, the 75% is applied to that number, which also becomes lower. So he told me that we have to have this point in there, but if you get a B, then the D will sort itself out. It's the point number D, which was not originally on, and that's what I had a conversation with him.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it appears that there's then a variance that wasn't identified as part of our original notice that went out.
Yes, right.
And so I don't believe that we can move forward unless it is deferred for a new notification. Unless the applicant is stating that they're gonna meet the regulation of this zoning bylaw requirement.
So, sir, I'm not sure I could specify the exact numbers, but is the soft landscaping variance no longer needed? Just looking at the original ask, the variance 50% of the front yard is to be landscaped, and in this case, 22.4% was going to be done or being offered. So can I just go over that issue with you again then? So the soft landscaping there's to be a further change in what you'll provide. Is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially, we were asking for 22%, but after the zoning bylaw examiner review, it turned out that we are at 49%, so we are at a higher number. But that was already there. That just changed a little. That actually reduced, but it's the point number D, which is the 75% of the required front yard softscaping, which, as per my conversation, is basically a percentage of B. So if B gets approval, then D automatically gets an approval. But if the technician is asking for a deferral, I guess I don't have an option. Even though it's approved for a new house and I have a permit, still I have to wait for a committee and wait for because the house is under construction. We have to wait 3 years doing nothing, 3 months doing nothing to the house just for this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're in a position that proper notification wasn't sent out because there's another variance that hasn't been identified on that notice. And so in order to proceed, it is an automatic deferral for recirculation to include this variance of the requirement for 75% of the required front yard landscaping to be soft landscaping.
Thank you. I agree. The public will want to know, what the details of the variances are. All right, sir, I'm going to make a motion then that we defer your item to a future decision, a future meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. And I so move. Is there a seconder for that motion? All right. Mr. Zahir, Berat. And all in favor? Okay, thank you. That is unanimous. The matter is deferred to a future meeting, sir. Okay. All right, that moves to number 5. We move to number 6, also also minor variance application. The address is 47 Turner Road, and I'm just going to check on what material staff have received on that property. Yeah. More importantly, the purpose of this application is to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling with a front integral garage, a front covered porch, a south side access door with a staircase, a rear basement walkout, a rear ground floor deck, and an in-ground swimming pool. Also, to construct a new 1-story ancillary building, which he says is a shed, in the rear yard. The committee had the following communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 9 photographs of trees on the subject property, a covering letter from Tony Round, an agent, an earlier decision of the Committee of Adjustment in 2021, a tree protection plan, and copy of a letter sent to neighbors from Anita Servasta and Albert Yoon, applicants, that was received January 16th, 2024. In terms of commenting agents from the city, there's a staff report from the Tree Protection and Plan Review that was dated January 24th. And there's also opposition. We have correspondence and opposition from Sheila Doherty at 43 Turner Road. Those are the matters that we have before us. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online.
Yes.
As well as one registered speaker in opposition at 43 Turner Road. So we will unmute the agent at this time.
thank you. It's helpful. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, it's David Bronskill, Bronskill. My mailing address, 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400, Toronto, Ontario, and just here acting as agent for the applicant. I can give a brief presentation, sir, for the committee if that's helpful.
Yes, I think it would be. We'll just try to be, I guess, as concise as possible. Thank you.
I will, sir. So there are 3 variances before you. One is for the FSI, one is for the building length, and one is for the staircase. I'm just going to deal with the FSI and the length quickly from a quantitative perspective, and then I'm going to come back to the qualitative. And by quantitative, I just mean the numbers. We did, with the help of committee staff, get decisions in the area, go through them. The reason we did that is not from a precedent perspective, but we just wanted to understand the scope of the numbers being granted for both FSI and length. And we also, frankly, looked for staircase variances into the various setbacks. We found many C of A decisions for all 3. And the FSI that's being proposed is well within the range of numbers that have been approved in the area. There are some that are even above 1 times coverage, but we're seeing numbers in the area from anywhere in the 0.5s being approved through variances up into the 0.8 and 0.9 range. So at 0.658, I'm just going to submit to the committee, it sits within the range. You're not approving something out of the ordinary. Same thing with the length. We saw lengths approved in the area from 17.6 all the way up to 20.05 meters. So again, just at 18.08, just from a numerical perspective, it's something in the range of approvals and isn't outside what you would find. We also did find variances for staircases into all side yard and rear yard setbacks, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. From a qualitative perspective, I wanted just to flag a couple of things for the committee. First, in the plans, on the plans itself, if staff could just go to those maybe in page 1 with that site plan. Thank you very much. The main structure of the dwelling, and it is a 3-story dwelling, but I'm going to come back to that in a moment as the second thing I say to the committee about this. If you look where the rear wall is designed by the architects for the main portion of the dwelling, it largely lines up with the adjacent dwellings. And it's deliberate. It's to ensure that the main structure isn't extending beyond and creating any massing impacts on the neighbors on either side. There is then the 1-story element, 4.79 meters there. That's what triggers the overall length. The main structure itself, you can see there is 13.3. So the length is really just for that one-story portion, and it's been massed in a way to allow our client to have some outdoor space with the deck, some additional living space on the ground floor where I think a lot of us spend the majority of our time, but in a way that doesn't create any impacts on any adjacent neighbors. And I'll come back to this just to minimize flipping among the documents. I just want you to remember the location of that one-story structure when I show you just one other document. The other thing, if staff could just flip down on the plans to any of the elevations, what the architects have done with the third story is slope it. It's essentially the roof, but the third story, which features an office and den space, is sloped on all sides. So you can see it's stepping back. There are no height variances, no main wall height variances. There's no height variance before you. But even this third story has been designed in a way to minimize its potential impacts. If I could ask staff just to go down one more to A402, the north elevation, you can see there how it slopes up from the street at a fairly gentle slope. Less gentle slope at the back, but still pull back from the rear wall before you get to that one-story structure. If you could go to the architect's letter for me, I'm just going to show you something quickly about the massing. This is the second thing, and then I'm just going to close on the stairs. If within that architect's letter, they included on the first page, some 3D massings just so that people could understand. Oh, sorry, it's the subsequent letter that was sent in. My apologies to staff. It's not the covering letter, but it's the E4B. Thank you. It's that letter to neighbors. Thank you. You can see there the massings, and you recall I talked to you about the one-story structure. It's been located, as many do, in terms of having these protruding one-story elements. The speaker in opposition has one. This proposal extends slightly beyond her one-story, but it's pulled away from her property, and it's going to have no impact on her whatsoever. And the neighbors to the north, my client has spoken to them, and they indicated no concerns. The staircase variance, I think, is what is going to get some time maybe from the neighbor to the south. I would simply note for the committee, it's stairs to enable access to a side door for my clients and their children to have easy access. I'll talk about it a little bit more maybe when I come back, Mr. Chair, but the dwelling itself actually complies with the setback at 1.22 meters. So it's actually a generous south setback with the stairs there just to allow access. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Yes, thank you. That's fine. Just in terms of the application, just looking at my notes, there seems to be urban forestry asking for a condition 1 and 2. Are you aware of that, and is your client content with that request?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are aware. We are content with that request. We've had our clients, sorry, I haven't, and the architects have had discussions, and the site plan itself, in fact, is positioned in a way to try and minimize an injury, but still allow vehicular access. You can see there's a lovely tree in the front, and everything has been positioned. That driveway frankly, has to come through a TPZ for that tree no matter what. There is an existing curb cut, and what's been done is that curb cut's being respected, a slight swivel or chicane in the driveway, but that TPZ, we're doing our best as we can to ensure protection of that tree. So those conditions are warranted and should be imposed.
Thanks very much. Members, any questions for the applicant? Otherwise, we'll...
Just a quick question. You mentioned a number of reports that you reviewed in consultation with the city. Were those provided to the committee?
No, sir. This was the research request that we did once we were retained and subsequent to the notice going out, and we just pulled them. There were so many, sir, that it would be a really big file, but it was the research request that we just pulled, and then when we went through them manually to pull out the different numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, if I may just ask a quick question.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Broadskill. Just a quick one. The number of variances are very few. I just had a question with regard to the proposed driveway. The materials that are going to be used, will that be permeable?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that question is to David Bronskill.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Madam Secretary Treasurer. I had pushed my backup mute button and was talking to myself.
It's okay.
Thank you for jumping in. I will, it's a new, if you look on page 3 of the site plan, sir, there's a new permeable driveway to be no closer than the existing concrete driveway. So I think, sir, if that's a condition that the committee wish to impose, it's one that my client would accept, because that page 3 site plan that shows that Norway maple already has a note of a new permeable driveway.
Perfect. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we will move on to the registered speaker.
Yes, please, yeah.
43 Turner Road, and Sheila, she has been unmuted.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, my name is Sheila Doherty, and I live directly.
Hi, we were just getting a little reverberation, so you might have to turn off one device, perhaps.
Yes, is it reverberating now?
That's better. I think that's better. Thank you.
Okay. I'm on the south side, and my objection is to the fact that the encroachment of this new build isn't minor. This is the second time this property has asked for a variance of this bylaw in the past 2 years. And the previous owner received a variance on the south side setback from 0.9 meters to 0.6 meters for their new build. And now the current owners want to further reduce that setback by 2.29 meters, which is a variance of approximately 68% of the original setback for this mature neighborhood. The current owners should have been aware of that variance and planned their house with this in mind. And given the information that today I saw that this is the entrance to the mudroom, which is essentially like making it the primary entrance, which will be right 11 inches from our property line and overlooking the one window from our kitchen. I think this hardship they've created by putting in this side entrance right up to the property line is self-created. And I think there are a number of ways that they could creatively create an entrance that doesn't impose so much on our property privacy on that side. I can't see any compelling reason for this being an undue hardship for them to find a solution to this setback. And I really encourage the committee to respect and reinforce the prevailing pattern in terms of setbacks on Turner Road, and to recognize the unnecessary burden that this would place on us on the immediate south side property. I do not think this meets the test of this being a minor variance, particularly given it's going to be the main entrance to the mudroom from the side of the house. And that's and all these properties are approximately 50 feet wide, and surely that could be accommodated to fit this in within the design of the rebuild. Thank you.
Yes, can you see the outline of the new building? Can you see that plan that's on?
Yes,
yeah,
I
okay.
can.
And you're south of that then, right? And
yes, immediately south.
You're mentioning, I'm just trying to follow things, an entrance to a mudroom. Is that,
well, as the
where's that?
Previous person who spoke, he mentioned that entrance, which was my concern. I assumed that it might be an entrance for the mudway. And as anyone knows, that a side entrance with a mudway is de facto pretty well the main entrance. So with it so close to us, that is to us an undue burden, an undue encroachment on our own sense of privacy on the side. And the previous new build designs did not have this, and it fulfilled, many of the same aspects that have been presented for this one as well.
Near that area, is there a fence or hedge or anything like that existing along the border between your property and?
No, there isn't. It's open. So We have the setback, but they will not have the setback. So it's basically the burden has been placed on us to provide the space.
Okay. All right, just hang with me for a moment. I just want to go back to the, just checking the variances. Need a moment. Sometimes the technology doesn't work as well as you'd like it, but here it comes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's presented on the screen, the variances.
Oh, thanks very much. Yes, very much. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So she has concern on item number 3.
Yes.
I think we can ask the applicant and see if they're willing to adjust their proposal or have other reasons to insist on having this variance.
I agree. I think that's a good suggestion. So, all right, can we move back to the applicant, Mr. Bronskill? And I guess that's the key issue, the committee's concerning the boundary on the south side and the entrance to your proposed building there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's a bit of confusion on the south. So my client did not bring forward the previous variance application. They've bought the house subsequent to that, and they're now proceeding with the house that they want to build. The mudroom is not the primary entrance. There's a primary entrance from the street. There's also an entrance from the garage when the car is parked directly in. But as you know, with a family with children, you also want to have a mudroom entrance on the side. It's 4 risers up to stairs that could be 0.6 meters away from the property line. The structure itself has no variance requirement and is in fact, as noted by the speaker in opposition, further away than the previous approval, and in fact further away from the lot line than her house. Her house is actually 0.9 meters from the property line. This would be 1.22. So it's encroaching stairs that are supposed to be 0.6. It's at 0.29, which is roughly 0.3. And as this committee knows, 0.3 of a meter is a foot. Yeah. So we're talking about the stairs to enable a family to access a side door in a safe manner, being a foot closer in a side yard where a fence 6 foot high could be constructed by either owner as of right under the fence bylaw right down the property line. There's no privacy impact. There's no noise impact. There's no right for either of these landowners to use that side yard area for access. Both have an ability to access their backyards on both sides. I'm going to suggest to the committee this is the smallest of variances I may have ever presented to the committee by moving stairs a foot closer. I don't see the privacy impact. I don't see the burden. And in fact, I see a wonderfully designed family home that has in fact tried to minimize real built form impacts on the neighbors. So I think it's really well thought out. And at 1 foot for those stairs, I don't know what the difference is between having stairs 2 feet away versus 1 foot away in terms of a privacy impact on a side kitchen window when a fence could be constructed there that would block any such view. So those are my thoughts, Mr. Chair, in response.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, members, why don't we take this into committee? Any thoughts, suggestions, or do you want to move toward a motion on this? Yes, Sahir?
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I'll just begin with comments, and then if colleagues find out, put forward a motion. I think what we have before us are indeed only three variances, and the most contentious one that has been brought to our attention is the variance number 3. And I take Mr. Bronskill's comments to heart in the sense that it is a very minor intrusion, if you like, for lack of a better word. My thought would be that either the current owner or the two parties together at some point may want to put up some kind of a fence, but that will be something for them to determine as time goes on. I do not see any issues with this application as it presents itself, notwithstanding the comments made by the person in opposition. So I'm quite happy to support this motion as is.
Thank you. We'll take that.
Sorry, and the only condition I would add is that the driveway at the front be permeable as indicated, I believe, in the site plan. Oh, gotta get to that. I believe it's a 0.3. I can't quite see it.
Sorry, can you just clarify that for me in terms of the condition that you're suggesting?
The only condition is that I think I'm trying to see what the number of it's on drawing A003. It's a tree plan that indicates that there'll be new permeable driveway no closer than existing concrete parking, so that the driveway condition be that the driveway be permeable as indicated on A003.
All right, do you want to just title that then as a formal motion, and keeping in mind too,
Yes.
we have urban forestry also asking conditions for trees. Go ahead.
That's correct. There's conditions 1 and 2, forestry 1 and 2. So I'd like to turn that into a motion, Chair.
Okay, all right. Other members, any further comment? What's your view on the motion? Yes, Aaron, please.
I'll just second that.
Second the motion. All right. Motion to approve with those conditions. All in favor then? All right. All right, we have unanimous approval, subject to those conditions. Have your approval, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. I noticed it's almost 10 after 11. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I'm suggesting we take a 10-minute break either now or perhaps in 10 minutes' time, something like that. How does that fit?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair, we can either do it right now or after item number 7, whichever you wish.
Let's just have a quick look at 7. Yes, okay. All right. We'll proceed and do number 7, and then the committee will be taking a short break, probably about 10 minutes. All right, number 7 then, also minor variance. The address is 34 Hollywood Crescent. And I just need a minute to it's fairly lengthy list of materials and communications here for 34 Hollywood Crescent. The purpose of this minor variance is to alter the existing one-story ancillary building, a detached garage, by constructing a rear one-story addition. The committee had before it the following communication: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 6 photographs of trees on the subject property, 2 photographs of the subject property from Mark Brazier, applicant. The TRCA have issued a permit number and essentially a TRCA approval letter. We can get into that in a moment. We have a copy of a letter sent to neighbors from Joan and Mark Brazier, applicants. That was a letter sent that was received January 24th. Then turning to the city and agencies, we have staff reports from the Ravine and Natural Feature section of urban forestry. And we also have a project analyst, it's Metrolinx weighing in with some remarks. In support, we have correspondence and support from Patrick Holloway at 32 Hollywood Crescent. And we have a total of 8 form letters in support signed by owners or occupants of residents who are either on on Hollywood Crescent or on Wemberley Drive. And for their 27 and 44 Hollywood Crescent and Wembley Drive, received January 29th, 24. So support there. In connection with the application, I'd just like to get to that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent here in person
Good. That's
and
great.
no registered speakers for this item.
All right, nice to have the person in. I'm just going to call on my, yes, okay. So we have a single variance. I see it, all right. Yes, again, just to alter the existing one-story ancillary building and detached garage by constructing a rear one-story addition. All right, I understand the applicant's here in person? Yes.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, I'll get from behind some of these screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name's Mark Brazier, and I'm the owner with my wife of 34 Hollywood Crescent.
Yeah.
Great. I think I just want to jump in. I think it's a very straightforward application. I don't think we need a presentation. I'm very happy to make a motion to support it.
All right, other members, any questions for the applicant?
No, I would.
Sometimes it's good to go just before the break, right?
I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion then.
But I would just say with the forestry condition one. I think there's a forestry condition.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the ravine natural feature protection condition number 1.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor that has been seconded to approve this application subject to a ravine and natural forestry condition. And sir, you're aware of that? You've
Yes,
seen, heard
yes,
that?
yes.
You're fine with it? Okay. All right. All in favor of that motion? I'm putting up my hand. I think we have unanimity. Sir, you have your approval, and the committee gets a break.
Awesome. It's a win-win. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Great, okay, yes, I know the page. So a 10-minute break, we can, a little comfort break, a little more ice water. Yes, sorry. Yes. Hi, everyone. Yeah. All right, thanks. The committee is going to continue with its morning
Through you,
agenda.
Mr. Chair, just 1 second.
Yes.
We need to unmute the room. Okay. Okay, we can proceed.
Thank you. Proceeding to item 8, it's a minor variance application for 167 Glen Road. Just want to read out the purpose. It's to alter the existing 2 1/2 story detached dwelling by constructing a 1-story side addition, an attached garage. The existing ancillary building, a detached garage in the rear yard, will be demolished. Committee had the following communications and material: copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, presentation materials from Glen Rubinoff, agent. In terms of the city, there's email correspondence from Transportation Engineering. There's a staff report from Tree Protection Plan Review. There's also a plan, a staff report from the senior manager, Heritage Planning, Urban Design, City Planning. And there is in support correspondence and support from Amanda Lynette at 14 Elgin Avenue, received January 30th, 24. Madam Deputy Secretary, I wonder if we could get, I realized the staff report was in a supplementary material that came to the members. If we could get that staff report up, and as we do, we can ask if there's applicant
Sure.
present here or online.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, we can present that staff report at this time on the screen.
Thank you.
And we do only have the agent speaking on this item, no registered speakers, so we can unmute Glen Rubinoff at this time.
Hi, Mr. Rubinoff, are you there?
It's Glen Rubinoff. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Is Mr. Rubinoff there on the line?
Yes, this is Glen Rubinoff.
Yes. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. We just read out the purpose of the application, and we're just taking there's a recent staff report from our heritage section, I believe, and I just wanted to take a look at that.
Yes, we had provided drawings to Heritage, and they had no concerns. They just simply wanted us to go through the process with permits, that they would review the plans, the final permit set.
So do you need to get a permit from them before you can?
It's part of the permit process. When we apply for a building permit, they would review it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just a quick link here. It seems to be there's just a single variance. All right,
Yep.
side yard. Okay. Well, I'm not sure that we'll need questions. The minimum, you're to have a 1.5 meter side yard setback. The altered dwelling is going to be 0.31 meters from the north line. Do you want to address that just very briefly?
Sure. Just quickly, if the available space on the side yard, in order to fit in a garage, which also fits into to a proper garage space inside, we need to have a variance for the side yard in that regard. It's similar to other garages, attached 1-story garages in the area. It's just to allow for a proper space, but also from an aesthetic perspective, and Heritage has reviewed this. It kind of blends. We're trying to blend it with the design of the main home. So there's just some, in order to have the garage at a width that it looks proportional to the home.
Thank you. Members, any questions, any issue?
I don't. I think it's a very straightforward proposal and it's acceptable. I would like to make a motion to approve it.
Let's
With the
find a
two
motion to
conditions,
approve, and it could be subject to the condition about heritage planning permit, but that seems to be there.
And forestry number 2.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Riz. All
Right.
right.
Issue number 2.
Motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
Second that. Thank you. All right. All in favor then of approval of this application? Yeah. Sorry, folks. All right. It is through and approved.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr.
Thank you very much.
Wilkinson, second the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I noticed that Mr. Wilkins did. Thank you, sir. You have your approval.
Thank you very much.
67 Glen Road. Okay. Number 9. We'll see if we can get this be here. Next, yeah, number 9. So it's 16 Elgin Avenue. Just going to read the purpose. Just check on materials that are before committee. Yep. So, purpose here is to alter an existing one-story ancillary building, which is a detached garage in the rear yard, by constructing a complete second-story addition with a front integral garage. This building will be converted into one garden suite for habitable space and the cabana. So, all right, I guess first floor for a vehicle, and I'm going to create a garden suite on the second floor. Here's what the committee has. A copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 6 photographs of the subject property. It also references two decisions of the Committee of Adjustment in 2022. There's a shadow study. There's presentation materials from Marco Rotundo, who is the agent. Commenting agencies, there's a transportation engineering. And we have staff reports from Heritage Planning and from the Acting Director of Tree Protection and Plan Review. Then there is opposition, correspondence and opposition from Terry Montgomery and Lynn DiStefano from the Annex Ratepayers Association. Next from Christian Henson and Jenna Sardo, 17 Boswell Drive. Further objection from Susan Blazer, 23 Boswell Avenue. And finally, from Bruce and Erica Walter, they're also on Boswell Avenue, 21 Boswell Avenue. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, and we do have one registered speaker in opposition here in person.
In person.
So at this time, we will unmute Richard Wangle.
All right, fine.
Richard Wangle. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Wengel. Yes.
Great.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thanks very much. I'll be brief. This is a proposal, as we said, for a garage addition. The existing building presently is not deep enough to park a car inside to today's standards. An old garage that sits at the rear of the property. At the very minimum, our clients do require a forward extension of the garage by approximately 0.6 meters in order to create a 19-foot depth for a vehicle to adequately be stored in it. As a result, it does create a little bit of a variance in terms of coverage for this site and a little bit of a reduction of landscape open space at the rear. Again, this was previously approved at committee for a 2-story rear addition, which did approve the existing pavement. We did an improvement to it because the whole backyard was paved. But by building this garage extension forward, it does create a slight reduction in the landscape open space, but again, doesn't really change the hard surface area that's there. When we went to our original design before the committee for this 2-story extension, we had considered a 3rd-story addition. Heritage was not satisfied that the addition would be appropriate because it was higher than the house. This is one of the only houses in the annex that's fairly low in terms of its roof. It only has 2 stories. And as a result, Heritage did ask us not to include a 3rd story, and we did amend our proposal just to be only 2 stories. And there was a letter from Heritage about 2 years ago asking us to consider moving this space that normally would be in the 3rd floor above the garage to create a new coach house. And this would be considered now a garden suite. You do have a staff report from Heritage and Planning that doesn't have a concern, and also a report from Transportation that doesn't have any objections. There are as well several annex properties with second floor living spaces above them. There's about 5 or 6 that we have noted. I just want to reiterate that our clients have 5 children and have potential to move back home or visit with them for extended stays. And again, we don't have enough bedrooms in this house. This suite will definitely help to accommodate them, and it will have a washroom facility and a kitchenette designed for full use. We have reached out, our clients have reached out with letters to many neighbors, and we have not had any response from neighbors in the back, but we do note that neighbor number 14 has no objection to it, and again, number 20 has not raised any objections as well. If we can just go to our presentation material, I'll be very brief. Now, if we go to the second page that shows the site plan,
just give us a moment.
You'll see at the top, yeah, thank you. You'll see at the top of the page the existing structure that's already there. That building has probably been there for at least 50 years. And the green shows the extent of the one-story garage. What we are asking for is an extension towards the south of approximately 0.6 meters, 0.72 meters by 6.55 meters. That will give us the 2-car garage in the adequate length. The one thing you'll notice on the roof plan is that we have set in a 45-degree angle on all 3 sides, and all the drainage is self-contained within it. Again, it's an existing building. It's definitely viable that we could use it. And so what we're proposing is to just rework a hipped roof structure on 3 sides from the rear. The east side and the west side have self-containing drainage within it, and therefore stepping in the slopes before they ascend upward approximately 0.6 meters in from each side. There will be only one dormer on this building that faces inward towards, so there's guaranteed privacy and no overview to our neighbors, and there's no windows overlooking that as well. And what we had noted, again, the driveway is an existing asphalt. We will be, where you see the green dots, that is new proposed landscape space where previously that was all paved in the rear. So there definitely is an improvement over the existing condition. If we go to the next page, you'll just see some schematic drawings of this structure, and you'll note the top left-hand corner is a 45-degree angle that we are working with. To the right at the upper corner and the right, that's a rear elevation, just showing how the slope works up from the existing walls. And then on the bottom, you'll see the 45-degree angle set in approximately 0.6 meters from the rear of the existing wall of the garage. If we go to the next page, we'll give you some context to the rear. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see the photograph of the existing garage. Behind us is number 21. That's a 3-story building overlooking our backyard. It's always been like that. It's a renovation or addition or a new build from several years ago. And it sits approximately 4 feet, 1.2 meters to 1.3 meters out of the ground to the ground floor. So it almost appears as a 3.5-story building, quite high. You'll notice on the left, a series of high trees between the properties, and on the right, high trees between number 23 and 21 that basically shield this from the neighbors. And I'll be finishing off now with the last 2 pages. If we go to the next presentation photo, you'll see just some 3D imagery of how the roofs ascend upward on a 45-degree angular plane set in from their sides with only one dormer facing into our property. And then the last page is just an overview of the site, and you'll be able to see number 21 Boswell at the back, the 3.5-story building. Our building is at the bottom. In blue is our proposed 2-story addition, and in gray, highlighted just behind the red property line, is the sloped roof structure. I believe this does pass the 4 tests. Again, planning has no objection to it. Heritage has no objection. Transportation has no objection to it. And I feel it's good use of the space considering we can't build this 3rd floor. And I believe it would be a good addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just add this. My own note is that there's urban forestry condition number 2. Is that correct? Are you aware of that?
Yes. Thank you.
That's fine. All right. Great. Thank you. It's very helpful. Members of the committee, is there a need for any questions?
Just a quick one, if I may, Chair.
Yes, please.
I know the soft landscaping request is for 22.7%. What's the existing at the moment?
The existing right now, I just have to get my stat sheet, if you'll allow me for a moment.
No problem.
Snap that out. The existing was 29%. And the simple act of just, and in fact, before we didn't have any because it was all paved in the backyard. So we actually improved that up to 29% when we did this addition and proposed the green grass. So what's happened is we've reduced the amount of rear yard because we've done the one-story addition just ahead of the garage to create the extra 0.76 meters. So you see the green line where it says existing one-story garage.
Yeah.
There's a little horizontal strip over 2/3 of this amount. That's the extension forward, southward, to create a 19-foot depth of garage for the vehicles so that we can actually park in and walk around them within the garage. And because that denominator of rear yard has been reduced because of building, it hence raises the number of the space. But nothing has changed from the original. Right now, that garage exists with that driveway there. And we then have this building over top of that.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if there's no further questions, I will call up Ian Flett.
Please, yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. You're hidden behind a screen. Nice to
yes,
see you.
all
Members.
of these virtual things, yes.
There we go, I can
I'll
see you.
shift around here, sure.
My name is Ian Flett, and I'm
Yeah.
here for the Walters, who are at 21 Boswell. I'm their solicitor in respect of this matter.
Okay.
Sir, I think that you hit the nail on the head on the previous garden suite application that you had before you, and where you said these are new development permissions available in the city, and it's not a reason to begin upsetting them by maxing them out now. And I think that you hit the nail on the head in respect of what is proposed here, in the sense that a footprint providing almost no setbacks. Now, it's an existing footprint of a garage, but it's providing almost none of the required setbacks on any of its sides is proposed. And I would suggest to the committee that if this was proposed as something new to the committee, it would be refused, where someone might seek such a large footprint for a garden suite. To be clear about the history of this application, it was previously submitted as an application with an extension, with an enlargement of the garage as an ancillary structure with a second story. Mm-hmm. The committee rightfully refused that application, and the committee found, amongst other things, and I note that Mr. Bayat is the only remaining committee member to have heard that earlier application. Mm-hmm. The committee said it did not fit the physical character of the area, recognizing that any examples of habitable space on a second floor of a garage in the area was outside of the heritage, the East Annex Heritage Conservation District. And so as you walk along Boswell and Elgin, you do not find habitable space above ancillary structures. And in fact, as you look at my correspondence, you see the aerial view demonstrates this as well. There is simply not this type of built form. Now, the committee is well aware of the garden suite permissions, and the purpose is to create new residential housing and to do that in a way that continues to respect the need for soft landscaping and trees. And one of the directives in the official plan amendments that permit these is to maximize available green space. And in this case, you're going from, the applicant is asking you to reduce an already deficient soft landscape. So they went from 0 on their first application, they got just the second edition permitted at 29%, and now they propose shaving that down to 22.7%. When you look at the plans, 3 of the 4 angular planes that are intended to be respected are not respected. The angular plane to the north, that affecting my client, is penetrated, and the angular planes to both sides are penetrated. Which angular plane is not penetrated? The one facing the applicant's house. Now, I don't say this to suggest that there was anything nefarious or intentional in that regard to impose the structure on others and not on themselves. But it is telling that to permit this application, you will be permitting significant encroachments into 3 of the angular planes. The purpose, of course, was to create new residential houses and balance that with the need of managing stormwater and trees. In this case, and as the official plan policies ask for, there is no maximization of the opportunity for more planting. There's no maximization of the opportunity for soft landscaping. How might that have occurred? perhaps by demolishing the garage and proposing a smaller garden suite. Perhaps it might have been achieved that way, but that's not the application that's before you. I think it's also important to note that garden suites have a very specific definition in the zoning, and it's consistent with the definition that you see in the official plan. And a garden suite means a self-contained living accommodation for a person or persons living together as a separate, single housekeeping unit in which both food preparation and sanitary facilities are provided for the exclusive use of the occupants of the suite and is in an ancillary building not abutting a lane. In this case, the whole raison d'etre of these policies is to create residential units. And the applicant, to their credit, have been clear from the beginning, they are not intending to create a new residential unit that would serve the purpose of a single housekeeping unit separate from the dominant house on the lot. And so just on the very basics of what the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as they are concerned, this application cannot be approved. Those are my comments that I can offer you in 5 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'll just ask, I mean, if the variances as set out, if those are approved, what impact, if any, is on your client's property?
Well, there's no question that when you look at that, when you look at the angular plane impact, my client has already lived with a 0 setback from the garage, standing, I think it's 4 meters in height. And that's fine. They've lived with that. That's a historic impact. But then they're being asked to live with the encroachment. And if you might pull up my correspondence, because in that case I've drawn out the actual line of the angular plane, and I think it's on the 4th page. Right there. So there we have in the upper diagram, we see the extent. First, we see what would be the required setback on a new application. So that's obviously the red line going straight up and down. And then the angular plane is the red line that would be otherwise required in this case. So here, where my applicant uses their rear yard as a place to gather family and friends, my applicant, by the way, is providing all of the trees that Mr. Wingle referred to in his submission. Theose are on my client's property. And there you have that angular plane setting back, encroaching into their rear yard. So there's no question that that is an impact. The other impact I would note is that if the committee begins to get into the habit of approving garden suites for additional amenity spaces to homes, it is undermining the entire process, the entire purpose of the garden suite policies. And that would be a negative impact. The precedent setting would be negative impact on policies throughout the city.
All right, thank you. Other members of the panel, do you wish to have any questions you'd like to address to Mr. Flood? All right. Seeing none, thank you, sir, and we'll get back to the applicant then in a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can unmute the applicant at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess just to respond, I know Mr. Flett is a very well-versed lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just an architect, and he can quote planning objectives, but at the same time, we're responding to a need for this family that does require extra space. We would have been happy to have it up in a 3rd floor, but we were cautioned that it wouldn't be appropriate, and then took advice from Heritage to use space over an existing building. It's not practical to remove this building and rebuild it. It exists. It's been there for many years, and I'm sure the owners number 21 did realize this building was there when they either bought their house or built their house. I think when we mince numbers about reduction of landscape open space, I think Mr. Fleck fails to mention that we've improved it dramatically from before, where it was originally entirely paved. And through great reductions, we're able to increase it. Now, there is a slight reduction from what was approved because we do need, it is necessary to have, at the very minimum, the extension forward to allow for the proper depth of this garage. These garages are less than 17 feet deep. A vehicle of today's length does not fit in anymore. It's just too tight. It hits the wall, and we can't park in there. So we, at the very minimum, do need to pull forward to make this garage viable. I believe each application has to be, I guess, evaluated on their individual merit. I do believe we've done everything we can to minimize the impact and ensure privacy to the neighbors by creating these inset 45-degree planes. I understand they don't quite comply, but it's not like we're rebuilding this from scratch. We're trying to use existing walls that are there so we don't disturb soil around it. We are self-containing our drainage. We are not having any runoff onto neighbors. We've done everything we can. And again, I believe the neighbors to the sides have no objections to this. And there was a letter that was submitted, but it wasn't mentioned at number 14. But we've done our best to minimize its impact. And I think when you did look at the drawing from Mr. Flett, but you can refer to our drawing at the side, I believe this is minimal in terms of impact. Were I to put a 6-meter high or higher row of trees, someone might say right on the property line, that's infringing on their privacy and causing shadow. I think the angular plane, when we did our study, it's minimal in terms of shadow impact on this yard. And if you look at the size of the trees that are on number 21, they are almost as tall as the house that's there. And so they in themselves cast shadows that are long and low based on having west exposure, where ours will be minimal in the summer. I do believe this is minor. I believe we have the support of the important departments, and I think this should be looked at on an individual basis, and it does have merit, and I will leave it to the committee.
All right, thanks, sir. Maybe just one point. Mr. Flett raised an interesting issue, at least for me, and that is the live-work, let's just say. We don't anticipate that it's going to become like a separate residence. As I understood some of your explanations, it's a large family, and there might be a need for that additional sleeping space in the over the garage. So
correct.
That's correct, is it? Okay.
Yes, there are 5 children that don't live, but there's only 1 guest room in this home. And again, because of the program that was needed on the 2nd floor, we couldn't fit any more up. We do have some basement space that may be converted. Ideally, it's not great. We'd rather have this space, and there will be a washroom and a small kitchenette in there. But I think, again, having 5 children coming back home and on occasion having a place to go when they live out of town, or should one decide to live there, we want to leave that option open.
All right, thank you very much for that. Members of the panel, I think we should take it into committee. Comments, suggestions? Does anyone at this point want to put forward a motion?
Perhaps, Chair, if I may just begin with a couple of observations and comments.
Yes.
I think I'd take the gentleman in opposition who representing the person in opposition.
Yeah.
I think some of his comments are very valid. I think one of the challenges that we're beginning to see, and we've just dealt with a few prior to our break, another request for a garden suite that was maximizing the space, especially when it came to the side yard setbacks. And I think this becomes a bit of a problem for me, at least. I also note that I understand that the original home perhaps had a backyard that was fully paved, and that this may be an improvement over that. However, it still doesn't get away from the fact that you're reducing soft landscaping at a time when soft landscaping is so needed given the climatic conditions we're currently experiencing. Just a few weeks ago, we had torrential rainfall. So drainage issues become quite problematic. I find that the proposal seems to it doesn't sit well with me, and I find it difficult to support this, especially variances 1, 2, and 3. So those are the ones that I think I find very problematic. I'm not sure what my colleagues' observations might be.
I can start. I think the applicant has done a very good job to, promote the concept and design, and I can understand that from a design point of view, they're doing their best to maximize the space without creating impact to the neighbors. But then when you look at what we're doing here is to determine whether this is minor or not minor. And that becomes a problem because, and I find it very tricky too, because you already have a footprint of an existing garage. It sounds very natural to just using the existing footprint, whether you can reuse the structure or not, but you use existing footprint and build a second floor. And I think that's how, as I said before, the way how the garden suite is different than a laneway suite is that you need a little bit of space at the back and then the coupling together. And that seems like it is a process that has been done very thoroughly by the city staff to determine how much light or air and common space should be shared among neighbors. And it's not something that we can lightly come in and say, because the footprint of the garage is here, that's why we have done our best to alter the angle to meet with it, although we cannot, right? That is a very difficult argument to accept as a minor variance. So very unfortunately, I cannot support that. I mean, there are some cases I can imagine where it might make sense is that you have a very deep lot and is in a less dense neighborhood. That might be acceptable in a certain way that the impact is not that much. But what you can see is the intensification of this site is quite significant. I wish the Heritage Department granted the approval on the front. That will be less, intrusive to the neighbor. But anyway, that's with the today's application, it is very hard to call it minor. I like the design, but it's not minor.
All right. Would one of the members then propose a motion on this application?
Sure. If there are no additional comments from Mr. Wilkins and yourself, Chair, I'd like to move a motion to refuse this application.
Is there a second for that motion to refuse? Yes, there is. All right. Mr. Chang, all in favor of this motion to refuse? It is unanimous. That's the application, sir. Okay. All right, we move to a further item, and just checking our time. Just want to just need a moment to get my agenda pulled up here. "39 Arlington Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a front ground floor addition, a porch enclosure. Committee had the following communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 2 photographs of the subject property, a tree protection plan, and in terms of support, there is a correspondence and support from Maximilian Kahn at 37 Arlington Avenue, so it must be very close by or adjoining.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we only have the agent online speaking for this application. No other registered speakers. We can unmute Giorgio Frasca.
And it's just the single variance then. I see. All right. Just want to get my own agenda.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
No, there are
the
more.
notice is presented on the screen.
Yes, okay, it's, sorry, guys.
Giorgio?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yes, thank you. We've just read out the purpose of your application. Would you just like to speak to it in a nice, concise way, and
Yes.
the committee will deal with you?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Giorgio Frasca from Frasca Design and Planning here at 2781 Highway 7 in Vaughan. I'm here as the agent representing the owner, Crescent Webster and Oliver Backman. We'll present you a brief presentation of our project. As you know, the purpose of the application is to enclose an existing front porch. The structure, floor, roofs are all there. We're doing an enclosure of that. And once we presented the building permit to the city, it triggered a variance for FSI. The change did not trigger any other variances, as you can see from what is requested in the letter. Setbacks, coverage, all remain unaltered. There's no trigger there. So I believe that the sheer point of one variance to me promotes this as a minor application. There have been no conditions imposed by any of the various city departments, again supporting this application as a minor variance. And as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chair, there is a letter of support from our immediate neighbor. He's actually joining us on the south side. One last comment, if I may make. There are several streets, if you walk down and up the street from us, there are several, there's 18, 30 Arlington, and 41 Arlington Avenue. The house just beside us on the north side all have similar enclosed porches. I cannot attest if there have been any permits granted for these, but the enclosed porch is there. As a whole, I believe that our proposal meets the four tests. Variances request is minor. Proposal desirable for the appropriate use of the building. The general intent of the purpose of the city zoning and official plans are maintained. My presentation at this point is complete, and I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker?
I do.
Sorry.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
I'm in support of this application, but I'm just curious about the tree protection plan. Is it something you voluntarily doing it, or am I mixing things?
We haven't been asked or a condition imposed, but if it's required, that's not an issue for us to do so.
Oh, I see. Even if you enclose the front porch, you have to provide this. Okay, that's fine. So I think we can get to committee and we can make a motion to approve it. If others have no questions.
No.
I'm in support of that.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Members, yes?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll make a motion to support the application with no conditions.
I'll second that, Chair.
All right, all in favor of that motion to approve? Yes? It is unanimous. You have your approval, sir. Okay. All right. Now just taking a look at what we got here. Next we'll be moving to item number 11. Again, a minor variance application on DEWBOURNE and 133 DEWBOURNE Avenue. Purpose is as follows: to construct a new two-story detached dwelling with a front integral garage and a rear first-story covered deck. Committee has before it copies of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, one photograph of the subject property. We have an arborist report prepared by Philip Rogic, appears to be a private report. We have a map and 4 photographs of comparable neighboring properties. Commenting agencies from the city. So there's the email from Transportation Engineering. And there are staff reports from the Tree Protection Plan Review, the Urban Forestry section, and there's a sort of a third-party review or comment from Metrolinx. In support, we're advised we have 4 form letters in support, signed by owners of occupants of 131, 135, 148, DEWBOURNE Avenue, and 126 Ava Road.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online and no registered speakers for this item. We will unmute Glen Rubinoff at this time.
Good morning. It's Glen Rubinoff here.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Just to simply state that this is a application for a new home But there is no, the neighbors, the immediate neighbors on both sides are in support of this application. Variances that we're requesting are well within redevelopment densities that have been for redevelopments in the area. We did provide a map showing some of the comparables. I believe that it's a pretty straightforward application, and I feel that if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I feel that this is meets the four tests. Thank you.
All right, I'll ask you just about variance 5, and it deals with driveway width, and maybe you could just address that. So it's saying the driveway width passes through the front yard, so it ought to be, in terms of the frontage, it should be a maximum of 3.2 meters wide, and you're asking for 5.18, 518. So what's the need there for the wider driveway?
So part of our arborist report was to identify adjacent trees, and there's an adjacent tree in front of 135, which has a tree protection zone which encroaches into our driveway. So in order for us to not impact that tree, we've expanded the width of the driveway to go around effectively. So it's really about protecting the tree, the adjacent tree next door.
Sounds good, and I see just in connection with this application, my notes are that the city's urban forestry is asking for condition 1.
Yep.
You've seen that, and is that acceptable?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
All right, members, those are the only questions I had. Is there anything further to add?
If I may, Chair, with regard to the driveway, which is a new driveway, I wonder if the applicant would be amenable to a condition that suggests that the driveway be produced out of permeable materials. This would also then assist in making sure that there's sufficient groundwater for the tree that may be partially or slightly impacted.
Absolutely. I was going to suggest the same thing because of the tree and to maintain the water and drainage around the tree, that permeable pavers would be acceptable. Absolutely.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a very good suggestion. All right, members, we'd like to put forward a motion on this.
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Chair, if nobody else has got one. I think you quite correctly spotted the variance number 5, which stood out. I think this is a very straightforward and reasonable application. The only concern I did have was with the width of the driveway, as you did, and the addition of, I think, having permeable pavers makes a huge difference. So I'd like to move a motion to approve this application with 2 conditions. One is forestry number 1, and that the proposed driveway at the front of the house be produced out of permeable materials, permeable pavers.
Thank you, and I will second that motion to approve with those conditions. All right, members, voting then, all in favor of approving subject to those conditions? All right, matter is approved, sir. You have your approval for this. Okay, Blue Jays Way, we have 4. Okay. So just checking with the time, and Madam Deputy Secretary, good. I think we'll continue. It seems to be we have about 4 more applications before a break, before sort of lunch break, and so we'll go to number 12. Blue Jays Way, 110 Blue Jays Way. Let's find out what that's about. So this property at Blue Jays Way, again, it's a minor variance application. The purpose, to alter the development standards for the mixed-use building as approved under site-specific zoning bylaw 812-2017 by increasing the total combined residential and non-residential gross floor area through interior alterations on the ground floor and mezzanine level. Committee had it before the following communications: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, elevations, 2 photographs of the subject property, a covering letter from Chris Stoyanovich, agent. Earlier committee decisions from 2020 and from 2021 are noted. Says affecting the property at 37 King Street West. There's a site-specific bylaw 812-217 affecting the subject property. That's part of the material then before us. And finally, we have a staff report from the project analyst, third parties project. So again, that's Metro Links, and we'll have to see if they're asking. We'll just have to see if their issue is anything other than a warning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we only have the agent here speaking, no registered speakers for this item.
Yes, thank you.
So we will unmute Chris at this time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members and staff. My name is Chris Stoyanovich. I am the agent and planning consultant. Address 110 Bedford Park Avenue, Toronto. I represent GERRARD Investments. They own the ground floor space contained within a recently constructed, approved 42-story mixed-use building. The ground floor space has the address at the southwest corner of Blue Jays Way and King Street of 110 Blue Jays Way. Within the ground floor space that they own, they have a building permit to start construction of a restaurant. The ground floor space has a height of 22 feet from the floor to the underside of the second floor slab. So my clients would like, and this is the purpose of the application, to construct a mezzanine office space above the restaurant so that the restaurant will have a approximate 10-foot ceiling height, and then the office space above that, another 10 feet to occupy the 22 feet that's available. The only minor variance that's needed is an increase to the total combined residential and commercial space approved in the site-specific zoning bylaw. As planning consultant, I've reviewed documentation, and I obviously support the application, and the 4 tests, in my opinion, have been met. So I turn it back to the committee for consideration, respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a single variance, and combined residential, non-residential gross floor area is increasing, but I would say modestly. Just going to see if there's any.
It's very, very straightforward, and there's no impact to the outside.
And I see no conditions. All right.
No conditions.
I would note that it's a less than 1% increase in.
0.59.
Yeah.
0.59.
And it's really an internal. It's a reconfiguration.
Completely, completely internal. No impacts on the.
This we can get to committee, and I will make a motion to approve. If nobody have other comments.
I'll second that motion to approve.
Yeah.
All right,
So
members, could we vote on that motion then for approval of this application? Please raise your hands. Okay, that carries. Okay, sir, your application is approved, sir, for 110 Blue Jay Way. Okay. All right. Bedford Road. Moving to the next minor variance, it's item 13. The address is 124 Bedford Road.
I gotta go. Sorry, they've got 75 days at the city before they have.
Sorry, where's that from? Okay, fine. Okay. Thanks. Bedford Road will also be north of Varsity Stadium somewhere, not too far. Purpose of the application to alter the existing rear one-story ancillary building, a detached garage, by constructing a complete second-story addition to contain one garden suite. The two-car integral parking spaces will be maintained and unaltered. So this is similar to a couple of applications that we've had this morning. Here's what committee has in terms of communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Revised site plan, floor plan, and elevations received January 22nd, 24. 8 photographs of trees and elevations received January 22, 24. Decision numbers, so the past Committee of Adjustment decisions, one in 2020 and one in 21. We have a Toronto Local Appeal Body decision, and that number is given. We may ask a bit about that. So there was a T-Lab appeal, presumably. And commenting agencies, we have from Heritage Planning here at the city. We also have the Manager of Traffic Planning, Transportation Services, and Urban Forestry. My note is there's a support correspondence and support from Tony Verone at 140 Bedford Road.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent speaking today. No other registered speakers for this item. We will unmute David Bronskill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Hi, are we in the afternoon? We are, thank you. It's just,
that was my reminder for you, sir.
Always good to be timed and oriented. And all right, just going to take a very quick look at the 4 variances. I'm just seeing here 5 variances, more than that. There's 7. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you give us a brief introduction and I guess really a concise summary of the variances that are being sought and why you think they're appropriate.
I will, sir. And this is an application for this property that only looks at the existing 2-car garage that's at the back, and to use that ancillary building, currently 1-story today, to have a 2nd-story addition that would have a garden suite. There are, as you noticed, there are previous decisions that dealt with the house itself. The T-Lab decision, sir, was an appeal that was by a neighbor that was withdrawn when such appeals were possible before the Planning Act changes. So that decision actually relates to one of the variance decisions, but it was a withdrawal of one of those earlier variance decisions for the property. So this is only the accessory structure that's at the back, and I thank staff for putting up the site plan. This is from the architects, and there's a presentation that we also have before you that links some of the variances to that accessory structure at the back. I would just flag for you, Mr. Chair, there's a report from Heritage and a proposed condition from Heritage, as I understand it. We accept that condition. It requires detailed plans and elevations because a heritage permit's required. And I would just note that staff and that ultimately are supportive of the conversion from a heritage perspective, but they just want to see the final plans and drawings before they issue any Section 42 permit, obviously. Some of the variances that are before you, Mr. Chair, relate to the existing accessory structure itself. So, for example, the setbacks at 0 and 0.03 on their face seem tight, but it's the existing structure itself. So it's recognizing that existing structure and then building on top of it. Okay. There are then angular plane penetrations and a dormer, sir. It's a 4-page presentation that the architects have that shows you just where those penetrations are. If staff are, I'm looking at where that is.
And I'm just going to interject for a moment. So, Mr. Chang, certainly like your consideration of this matter about the angular plane and the dormer that he's speaking to. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe to staff, I just don't see it there listed. It's but maybe just flipping down from the site plan, the elevations will come up. That one would do. Yeah, those are fine. Thank you, staff. So the angular plane there is shown on red. You can see that the existing garage itself on the left-hand side there sits, if I can call it, outside of where the setbacks in angular plane would be drawn. And what has really just been done is taking that existing structure and then building on top of it with what we think is a nice uniform building that is sensitive to the heritage context of the area. Even the rear portions of these buildings are subject to the HCD plan. And so that's where we've got the penetration of the angular plane. No one here is in opposition to it in terms of any of the adjacent sites. And if staff could just go down one more, I can show you the dormer. Again, we've got an angular plane this is the north elevation. On the right there, the existing structure itself sits within where that angular plane would be drawn, and we've just gone up on top of that existing structure to have a complete second story. You can see where the dormer sits, just penetrating into that angular plane on the left-hand side there. We think that's a modest projection into it. And at the end of the day, just where this, if I could ask staff just to go back up to the site plan, where this structure sits as a garden suite, you can see that there is some green space on 122, which is, if you can see, above the structure on this plan. But if you look on the right-hand side, it's also flanked by an existing shed and another existing accessory structure on the properties that are to the rear. So in terms of that existing context, it's sitting in an area that in at least on that one side are surrounded by existing accessory structures, and there aren't going to have any impacts. And 122 Bedford, I understand, is aware of the application and has not raised any concerns. So we think it's a good use of the property to have some gentle intensification and add that one unit without anyone expressing any concerns, Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much. And just in thinking about conditions, my note is that there's an urban forestry condition number 2.
Yes, sir.
And I presume your client's satisfied with that or can live with that. And
yes, sir.
And then there'd be a condition about, shall we call it, requiring a heritage permit from the heritage division of the city?
Yes, sir. I call it a belt and suspenders condition, but it is one that is within your jurisdiction and that I would recommend to you. The reason I say it's belt and suspenders is that we would need to get a heritage permit anyway, but this secures that staff would have a final review of building permit drawings prior to the issuance of a building permit. And in these areas where you do have these HCDs, I think that's a commendable condition to ensure that what is being proposed actually translates into the building permit before it's issued.
All right, thank you. Just putting the matter then into a committee. Members, you want to proceed with any motion, or do you have a comment?
Question. Can my colleagues at the meeting hall pull up drawing front elevation?
We're drawing of the front of the elevation, I guess, that we are of the.
Yeah, there's no page number, so. Yeah, I think unfortunately, this is a very negative image to show whether it is minor or major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that sufficient? Is that sufficient to help you with your comments? What you
yeah.
No, okay.
My concern is not minor. I mean, even though there's no one complaining about it, but now you can understand the impact and the original design of the policy or the bylaws about creating the setback. Because the idea is you have to have a minimum setback from the rear property line and then create an angle. If you don't have that setback, such as 0 meter right now, and then you don't have the angular plane, the impact is pretty significant. It's multiplied. So again, I like the design. Everything makes sense. But I don't think the intent of the garden suite is to allow this kind of development to happen. Someone or something have to be changed in order to call it minor. So that's my comment.
Members Wilkins or Bryant, do you want to comment?
The
Yeah.
variances is also very similar to before, and once you have this kind of development, automatically your soft landscape will bring down to half of what is required, right? Which is again not minor.
So here, did you want to comment? Yes?
Yeah, just picking up from Mr. Chang's comments. I think we've just dealt with two previous issues along similar lines. And I do take note that the rear setback, for example, in this case, while again asking for almost a zero setback, there are structures at the back that kind of mitigate the presence of this structure. However, I think Mr. Chang's point is well taken in that in the front elevation, when one looks at the second floor, there certainly isn't. It's basically a straight up wall, mind you, triangular perhaps, but it is a wall, and I think it does mitigate against the kind of thing that the garden suites were intended to do. And rightfully, there's nobody complaining. But I think it also would perhaps set a precedent that we've just had a refusal on one, and this one's not dissimilar. It does become a problem. With regard to the soft landscaping, I suspect that that's an existing circumstance rather than one that could be rectified. Yeah, so this one is again a little difficult to support. And I know Mr. Bronskill is very thorough in his work, but in this particular one, I think we have a bit of a problem.
All right, then, would a member like to put forward a motion, please?
I just want to add that this site is a little bit different because there's an existing. I wish the site plan can show more, but I mean, it's back to another structure at the back, and that's probably why the neighbor at the back is okay with it, right? So that's what I was thinking. Is that good enough to create an exemption? That's something I'm wondering.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, it's really about the context of the site. I think it would be very difficult to support, but then there's also some little bit of merit that I'm not saying 100% no. And then they can move the building to the front because that way it will be too close to the main building. Right. So that makes me wonder if this kind of lot with this depth is appropriate for garden suite. Seems like there's a minimum lot. I mean, if we look at the variant, now we look at the third case, right? It only works if the depth of the lot has a certain length. Then you can meet the requirement between the garden suite and then create enough space at the back. Once the lot is this kind of depth, basically, I think the bylaw do not see this as a appropriate development. So I guess I still can support it. I'm sorry. I wish it can be interpreted differently. I'm trying to help, but I think no matter what, my conclusion is still a no. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let the others to come in and make a motion.
Yeah.
Sorry,
please go ahead.
So I was going to say I can make a motion to, in my view, should be refused. In this case, I accept that we haven't heard a lot in terms of negative impact from other people, but I tend to agree with what I've heard from Mr. Bayad and Mr. Cheng that just quantitatively the variance requested are quite significant in terms of what is required by the bylaw, and I tend to agree that the purpose of the bylaw sort of envisions certain types of lots and certain sizes and certain parameters that have to be respected, and I don't think that this does that. So I would move to refuse.
All right. Sorry, was that a second of the motion? I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay. Yes, I.
And then this, we have all in favor.
The chair is dissenting on this one.
Okay.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, then I take it that the votes are there, it has been refused? Is that
Sure, yes. Yes, the application has been refused. Motion was from Mr. Wilkinson, second by Mr. Chang.
Chang, yes.
All in favor with you dissenting.
Thank you. Great. All right, we've completed that application. It appears that we have two before lunch break. That's always good news. Item 14, 1 Warwick Avenue, and the chair just take a moment to get his paperwork straight. All right, another minor variance application. The purpose, to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling with front covered porch, a front integral garage, an east side basement walkout, a rear patio, and a rear 3rd-story balcony. Also to construct a new 2-story ancillary building for habitable space and art studio, a new ancillary structure trellis, and a new in-ground swimming pool in the rear yard. Quite a bit happening in that application, and committee has the following communications: copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a revised site plan, floor plans, and elevations received January 25th. We have an arborist report that appears to be private. We have presentation materials by Georgina Myers as agent. In terms of staff and commenting agents, we have a staff report from Tree Protection and Plan Review. And in opposition, we have Mary Petty at 4 Markdale Avenue, Arnav Gard on behalf of Carolyn and Jacqueline Benes at 3 Warwick Avenue. And that was received January 29th, 2024. So we're showing some opposition. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, what do we have in terms of the agents and speakers today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, and we also have registered speakers here in opposition.
Okay.
So we will unmute David Bronskill.
All right.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chair. David Bronskill here, acting as agent for the applicant on this file.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to take a moment just as I handle some of the mechanics here. Okay. Well, perhaps I preface it by saying that there seemed to be a lot going on. Just taking a quick look at 8 variances. All right, Mr. Bronskill, yes, would you tell us about this application, please?
Thank you, sir. If I could ask staff just quickly, tab B, which was just the location map, because I just wanted to show the committee. I'm not going to call it unique, but different nature of this lot. You can see its depth. Just because of the skew of the 2 streets as they head over to Bathurst, it's created this deep lot. And that's in part the opportunity of the accessory structure that you'll see on the site plan that's being proposed. So I'm going to suggest to you there are 2 groups of variants. One relates to that ancillary building. And then one, excuse me, Mr. Chair, the other group then relates to the dwelling itself. I'm going to start with the variances for the dwelling itself. And if staff are able to find the applicant's presentation, thank you very much. We've broken the site plan down into 2 pieces, just so that you can see the relative level of detail first of the structure that's proposed, and then of the accessory dwelling that's proposed. And that's just on the next page. If staff don't mind going down, you can see we've zoomed in so that you can see the actual structure itself. What's happening with the design of this house, I would just point out to the committee, is a 3-story dwelling that is then tapered down to 2 stories and tapered down to 1 story. There's then terrace and outdoor spaces that would not be part of the main structure. And on the left-hand side, as you can see at the back, that longer one-story element is actually a staircase down to a unit in the basement that, for example, could be used as a nanny suite that has a separate access point. But otherwise, there's a one-story bump out that then leads you to a patio and covered room. The reason I flagged that for the committee is the length and depth variances numerically may seem large. That is, you've got a length of 28.65, you've got a depth of 30.95. Those are measured to the back of the excavated deck. So the basement under the deck is excavated. And I think I've presented these to the committee before, where I've recommended a condition that you require construction substantially in accordance with the site plan to ensure that the length and depth is deployed as shown on the plans. That is, it's not deployed in additional 2-3 stories out the back, but it really is the excavated portions under the deck. And if staff could just go to the last page, page 8, we've done a rendering or rear view elevation, so you can just see what I was talking about. So on the right-hand side there, you see in stone, that's where the staircase is covered down. And then you can see the small one-story bump out. Again, it's on the right side. It's got 3 windows, one which is partially obscured by a pillar, and then it's got a door that leads out to the outdoor space. All of that is excavated below, which is what triggers the variance. But then these are otherwise outdoor spaces that can be weather protected, but they're not indoor spaces. So that condition would be very appropriate in my respectful submission to you. Just so you have the stats for you in terms of, and I apologize to staff, if they're able to pull up the plans, and either the east or west elevation, I can just show you. The actual building length, other than this sort of one-story projection and covered terrace, is 18.29 from the front wall to the back wall. Thank you to staff for bouncing around. Just one more, if you don't mind. Just so that staff, that dimension's there at the top. It's a bit small, but that's 18.29, which in terms of being measured from the front yard setback is less than the 19 meters for the depth that would otherwise be permitted. So I wanted to give you that background just to explain the numbers behind the length and depth. I wanted to quickly just trigger the sidewall height variance for you. That's measured, and if staff stay there just for a minute, that's measured to the dormers that are on the side of the building there. They are technically larger than, they have a width that's greater than the 30% of the wall below, and that's what then triggers the variance. And again, it would be, in my respectful submission, appropriate to tie this to the elevations to ensure that any sidewall height is only deployed for those dormers and not to result in a larger box or structure. The accessory dwelling, I'll just quickly touch on. It is at the back. I'm going to submit to you, it's tucked away. It's pushed back to maximize the usable space of the backyard. It does have a rear setback of 2 meters, whereas 3 meters is required. There's supposed to be 1 story, but it's a modest 2nd story I'm going to submit to you for an artist studio on top. That then triggers some additional floor area because it does have a 2nd floor on it, but it's tucked in an area at the back corner where I'm going to submit there aren't any impacts on any of the surrounding uses, and it really would be a wonderful use as an artist studio for someone at the back of this special deep property. That's an overall description, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Just going back to that first kind of location map. So it looked like to the east, are they apartment buildings? Trying to think what's abutting there, but it looks like I don't know if it's a mixed-use building or are there? Oh yeah, thank you.
Yes, those are some of those apartment buildings that you see. I'm going to call them more of a modest scale, sort of 3, 4, 5-story type walk-up apartment buildings.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
And then the accessory structure is in that sort of southeast corner behind 1654. And it's a weird lotting pattern because to the south, you sort of see that weird remnant lot.
Yeah.
I actually really don't know who owns that. I'm going to confess to you. But it's not part of 2 Markdale to the south. And so there isn't what I would call a traditional rear yard to the south of my client's property.
Yeah. Thanks, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if there's no further questions of the applicant, then we can just move to the speakers.
I don't think anything from the, I think we can move on to the
Sure.
speakers. Yes, thank you.
So I'm going to call up George Berger. And then also Arnav.
Sorry, I got into a position where I can see a little bit here. Hi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is George Berger. I'm the agent for the next door neighbor, Caroline and Jacqueline Bennis. They own the property next door at number 3, Warwick, and they also live there at the same time. We're in opposition to this proposal as we feel that the variances requested are not minor in nature. We don't feel it's good planning. And I'm going to allow my colleague here, Arnav Garde, who's our designer, to speak and to make our presentation as to what our concerns are.
Thank you, George. My name is Arnav Garde. I live at 75 Glencrest Boulevard. I'm speaking on behalf of my clients Caroline Benyes and Jacqueline Benyes at 3 Warwick Avenue. We are opposed to the application at 1 Warwick Avenue. The 8 variances requested by the applicant for 1 Warwick are not minor and do not meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. It would be an undesirable overdevelopment and set a worrying precedent for a very stable neighborhood. We respectfully ask that the application be refused in its present form or be amended such that it is in line with the existing physical character of buildings, streetscapes, and open space patterns in this area. The proposed dwelling unit does not fit within the existing or planned context for this immediate neighborhood, since it introduces a 3-story dwelling unit, whereas bylaw permits only 2, which overlooks adjacent properties, creating intrusions to privacy for residents at 3 Warwick. This will have a negative impact on the continued viability of 3 Warwick as a non-profit residential tenancy building. By the way, 3 Warwick is a 2-story residential tenancy building. The proposed site plan does not consider the visibility of cars backing in and out of parking spaces at 3 Warwick, which is a safety concern for its residents. The proposal requires significant variances from the zoning bylaw to permit for the proposed single-family detached dwelling and ancillary structure. However, these variances are not minor or appropriate and do not maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. It is my opinion that the proposed development does not meet the 4 tests and therefore in its current state should not be accepted. To summarize, the proposed development would not be appropriate within the context of the neighborhood. We would respectfully request the applicant to reconsider their proposal in light of our concerns and revise their proposed design such that it maintains sufficient eastern light that residents at 3 Warwick are accustomed to since 1965. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that analysis and comments. Other members of the panel that would like to ask the speaker any questions? All right, seeing none, all right. Thank you, sir. We'll go back to the applicant to respond to those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, just give us a moment, Mr. Bronskill. We're just moving around here. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to start by saying I'm puzzled by some of the comments. Okay. There was a suggestion that we're introducing a 3-story where it's not permitted. I'm going back to the public notice because I panicked, Mr. Chair. and I don't see a variance for the number of stories. I literally panicked that I had missed something and misled you in my presentation. So
I just
that
ran through them myself, yeah, to see if it was there.
Yeah.
I didn't see one, yeah, okay.
No, so that submission's not a fair one. 3 stories are permitted. I'm not seeking a variance from you for that. In terms of the driveway, I'm not sure how a driveway to a detached house impacts a driveway on a property next to it, and we've got no variances for driveway location here. So I also was confused and didn't understand that comment. There was also a comment related to light from the east, and I'm just going to suggest maybe the location map actually is helpful again, staff, if you don't mind. Thank you. This shows you the size of 3 Warwick to the west. It's a sizable structure. But in terms of light to that structure, I'm going to suggest, and apologies to staff, if you don't mind then popping back to the site plan, I just wanted you to see that context. Light from this, what I'm going to call staggered 3-story structure, because you can see how it steps back as it gets up to the 3rd story before you just have those dormers on the side. You can see that the main structure itself barely extends beyond the rear wall of 3 Warwick. And that's a function, I think, of that 18.29 meters dimension that I was showing you before. And then there's a 1-story structure. So I don't see how this is going to negatively impact light on 3 Warwick, particularly in the rear yard, beyond that might be contemplated by the bylaw itself, and especially when they're on the south side of the street. And as the sun comes along throughout the day and into the morning, all of these yards, frankly, are going to have really good access to sunlight once it's over top of the apartment buildings, the low-scale apartment buildings. I don't mean to be so dramatic about them. The low-scale apartment buildings that are on Bathurst. So there's going to be lots of direct light. So again, I didn't really understand that submission. So I'm just going to leave it with the committee that I think the reaction of 3 Warwick and the planners may just be based on the numbers. I understand that concern, but I think that concern is cured with the conditions that I recommended to you before, so that this built form, which I'm going to suggest sits very compatible with what's next to it, but that this built form is ultimately delivered. And I think with those conditions, I think the concerns that were raised to you would be mitigated, if not fully addressed.
All right. Thank you. Members of the panel, any questions of Mr. Bronskill there in response?
So,
if I may, Chair. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Shall I go ahead, Chair?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask Mr. Bronskill a quick one. You've got a driveway, a proposed driveway, of course, and you know the question I'm going to be presenting. Would that be a permeable materials again?
For this one, I must be learning in my advancing age. I looked at the plans earlier, and I didn't see that note on these plans, unlike the plans that I had presented to you for 47 Turner. That being said, I know that this client, in terms of what they're proposing for the site, would have no concern with such a condition. And that relates to the fact that although there are a few trees in the middle of the lot that are having to be removed, but that have been reviewed with urban forestry, there are trees, for example, at the back of the lot near the accessory structure that they really want to keep as part of the setting for the artist studio. So from a green perspective, they would be 100% supportive of such a condition.
Thank you. And I just wanted to also comment, if I may, like I suppose anybody else or many folks who have looked at the agenda and the request for variances, I think the numbers that were presented or are presented, they really do stand out. And I thank you for your explanation, because I think that makes a lot of sense and puts the numbers into perspective. And the fact that the structure is staggered, just also in response to the, I think it's number 3, and the concern about sunlight. there's an existing three-story structure, not a stone's throw away. So I think your structure, which is staggered, doesn't have that impact that I think they're concerned about. Perhaps it's just the numbers. Overall, I think this is a good proposal. Thank you.
Any other comments from other members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, there's one thing, I'm only adding this just because I feel I inadvertently maybe gave an incorrect submission to the committee. I still don't know what that, if staff go back to the location map again, my apologies to keep going back to that. I'd indicated to you that square to the south, I didn't know who owned it. That remains true. But when I look at the presentation that we put together, and my apologies, page 4 does give you an aerial so that at least the committee has an understanding of how that's used. I can't confirm who actually owns it, but I did feel that by not showing you that page, I might have been inadvertently misleading you. But you can see that it's a parking area, and there's also then paved areas for the homes there on Markdale to the south as well. There's those parking areas, and that just, I hope, is maybe helpful for the committee, and also citing where that accessory structure would sit in relation to that parking and the apartment buildings. And I apologize for not showing that to you earlier.
No, that's fine. It's just a little hard to follow the diagram here. Okay. All right, just taking this into committee, can we hear some comments or thoughts? And we'll see where we go from there.
If I may begin, Chair.
Yes, please.
I think overall this is, I think Mr. Bronskill's explanation certainly clarified for me some of the large numbers that I saw and I flagged for myself. I think overall this is a very unique location. The property is a very unique one, flanked by the low-rise 3-story and 5-story buildings as well. The fact that the back yard doesn't have an impact on any residential property immediately behind it. So there are a number of factors, I think, that makes this a rather unique location. I think it's a supportable, from my perspective at least, it's a supportable application. And I think the only conditions I would add is, one is that the driveway be permeable, that as Mr. Bronskill suggested, to make sure that the construction is substantially in keeping with the site plan, and that we tie the project to elevations as well. And there's a forestry 1 condition. So apart from those, I'd be quite happy to support this this application.
Thank you. Then, well, I invite you then to proceed with a motion along those lines that you have just addressed, and we'll see how committee.
So thank you. If my colleagues don't have any objection, I'd like to move a motion to approve this application. The conditions that we would attach is that the driveway be produced out of permeable materials.
Right.
That forestry 1 condition apply. That the construction be substantially in keeping with the site plan, and we also tie the application to elevation drawings. I think that was it.
Members, anyone else wishing to second? Seeing none, I'll move approval of that with those conditions as outlined. All right, maybe we have a vote on that. We have a first and second motion. All those then in favor of approving with conditions? Okay, we have unanimous on that. Sir, you have your approval on 1 Warwick. Okay. Okay. Item number 15, 889 Connor Drive. I'm just going to get the material on that. Right to with everyone is to get my, yes, that's better. Yes, thank you. So again, item 15, another minor variance application, 889 O'Connor Drive, to alter the existing two-story mixed-use building by constructing a rear one-story addition for a vehicle service shop. Committee had it before the following communication: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 18 photographs of the subject property, received November 27th, 23, 3 photographs of trees on the subject property, and then in opposition, we have correspondence in opposition from Mario and Iva Menucci and Pompillo, and Francis Menucci, if I pronounce that correctly, they're at 901 to 905 O'Connor Drive. So I wonder if we may have the applicant or owner be invited to speak next, and I think it would be very nice if we could display the photographs here, so we can get a better feel and idea for the property, since we're asking for vehicle repair at the back of an existing. Thank you for those photographs. Yeah.
Through you, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, we do have the agent online as well as 2 registered speakers in opposition. However, I'd like to unmute the first speaker.
Yes.
So Piero.
It's Pedro. Hi,
Pedro,
good afternoon.
yeah, sorry, who are you speaking on behalf of?
Hi, you
Agent.
You representing somebody
Who are
today?
you
As
representing?
well. Not sure
Hello?
if you need more.
You keep cutting in and out.
Piero Minicucci, I'll be
Hi,
representing.
hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon. So I didn't, I was already unmuted. So I was already talking. My name is Pedro Casimiro. I'm the applicant of this application, architect of the project as well. I'm representing the owner.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, that's fine. Just give us 1 second. We want to unmute the 2 registered speakers. I just want to determine who they are speaking on behalf of.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Piero Minicucci.
Yes, and who are you speaking on behalf of?
I'm speaking on behalf of my parents, Mario and Eva Minicucci, as well as my uncle and aunt, Pompilio and Francis Minicucci. Francis is also on the line and would be able to answer any questions or fill in any gaps that I might have in my...
Okay, so you will be speaking for the entire 5 minutes then, right? Or did you want to share that time with Francis?
I think I can speak for the 5 minutes, and in the event that we have any extra time, if I've missed anything,
Okay.
I would ask that you jump in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to Pedro, who's the agent.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm representing the owner on this application. Did you want me to do a presentation?
Yes, I think we should
Yes,
have that.
right.
We're asking people to be concise, but since this one's a little different, we've been dealing with residential applications. This is a little different use. So
Right,
please,
okay,
please
yes,
proceed. Tell us about it.
Right, so that whole area, it's a mixed, a whole O'Connor area there. It's a bunch of mixed-use developments there, where the residential is on the top units of the it's mostly 2-story buildings on that area there, that strip, that's lane that lead to that back to that laneway that is parallel to O'Connor Drive as well. So that's different types of commercial uses. This particular property, 889 O'Connor, is owned by Mr. Khan, and he's been owner of that property for quite some time. and he has two sons. One of the sons, he is a mechanic, professional mechanic. He currently works for another mechanic in another area, but he would always wanted to have his own service shop area, and his dad proposed that he would do it on their property that they owned for so many years. So this particular area, most of these properties that back onto this laneway, they already have some sort of extension per se, and some of them already are, so like I mentioned, already commercial. Some of them are that they're a signing company, a signage company, for example. There are other parts. There's a restaurant there as well that backs up to the laneway. There's a few extensions that are already there on that laneway. This proposal that we're doing, in our opinion, will not impact too much in that area. As to, it would only impact, I guess, 1/3 of that back area that is currently used as a parking lot. But usually the parking lot's not even full. As you can, the owner has confirmed with me, he has a few units already rented on the top portion of the existing building. One of the users is the son. So the son that will be the owner of this vehicle service shop is living there currently there now too. So it would be very, I guess it would be a perfect location for his vehicle service shop. So yeah, so you're seeing there the site plan. There's the existing structure, the 2-story structure. So we're proposing, in my opinion, it's a small addition, just a 1/3 of that back area over there. So that portion there, that would be the area for him to service and help his customers fix their cars. I think that's pretty much it. It's only a 1-story building structure. The variances that that we're asking are 3. Some of them we understand that they're right on the property line, but for a functionality of this type of proposal, we found that it could not get any smaller, the structure itself, because otherwise it wouldn't work itself. It wouldn't function as a vehicle service shop. So we're currently maintaining the parking that there is there. We're just instead of being on the left side, now it's on the right side, because currently now on the right side, the owner of the property, Mr. Khan, has a big vehicle there for his piano store, but he will move that to another location. So that's not a problem. So the parking is provided for the units, for the users that live and have commercial properties on the ground floor, and the circulation was thought out properly. There's a setback to in the back as well, so the vehicles can exit. That current laneway is I live in a neighborhood, and I use that laneway quite some often because sometimes the traffic on O'Connor. It is pretty. It's not like a normal street, but it is very used, that laneway. I think that's pretty much it. I think I explained everything. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. I'd appreciate your time. Yeah. Sorry, the time wasn't counting down, so I'm not sure if I have more time.
I think we're okay there. So there's sort of like a commercial strip, yes, on O'Connor, and I kind of know that general area. So above there's residential, what, a 2nd story, a 3rd story, about
This particular one is just a 2-story. So and so the bottom, there's a piano store. There's a vacant unit that's on the left side that will be part of the future addition of this to help support this use. And in the middle, I'm not sure who lives there right now or who uses that space, but it's another commercial area. But the owner of the property, Mr. Khan, the piano store owner, he's been there for a long time. A lot of people know him in the neighborhood. Like he's been. The owners also contacted some neighbors for this application, and they received some support as well. Their names. One of them was. He mentioned there was a chair of the Home Association of the neighborhood. So Mr. Allen and the Doris, his wife. So they spoke. They did do. I did tell them to contact their neighbors and to let them know what they wanted to do. So they're in support. So I wasn't. I'm just want to hear. Look forward to hearing what the opposition has to say as well.
All right, well, just prior to that, and just thinking about the variance again, so you want to construct a rear one-story addition for a vehicle service shop. And then as I look at the first couple of variances, and you can tell me if I'm reading this wrong, but it's essentially, I guess they're trying to create some gaps between vehicle service and in this case, you can't do it. Like the first one, provided the minimum distance from the vehicle access to another vehicle access is 7.5 meters. In this case, the distance between the vehicle accesses will be 0 meters. So there's an immediate abutting other vehicle service shop there.
No, I think it's access to the property. I think that's what they mean. So an access to the property. So it means 7.5 meters, but the way we located the garage entrance for this vehicle shop, it's in the front of it's really if you leave the garage, you're gonna access the laneway directly. So and on the other side, the people that need to park on the property will still have all the it's all open. That's what I mean. So they can still access the property. So that I think that's what they mean by the 7.5 meters.
All right, variance number 2, and again, just trying to understand, vehicle service shop is permitted use provided the required minimum setback of the vehicle access is 3 meters to a lot line, and you're asking for 0 meters from the lot line. And that's like a lot line from the abutting owner in the rear, is that?
Well, yeah, that's the south side of the property. So we're really on the property line. But just if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be able to provide the existing parking that was still there, and the circulation wouldn't work. And like I said, on that lane, on those properties that abut into the laneway, there are quite some examples that they have built right on the property line. But in terms of functionality, or even privacy, like I don't think it will be an impact on those in the back areas of those other properties. Everyone, or almost like a lot of people use it just for parking, and other people have been extending their buildings to that back area.
So just in the rear, I'm just thinking about the
rear.
The
See, it's
I'm just trying to understand. Are there additional vehicle repair shops there?
No. There's no, not on that strip. No. There's one
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, there's one on Sinclair that's maybe I don't know, a few kilometers. I'm not sure, maybe 4 kilometers away, and another one north of just north of O'Connor, but closer to Eglinton. Like I live in the area, so I know the uses. But this particular area, and that could accommodate other types of clients. There's other commercial spaces that there's a signage place there. And there's restaurants. There's a pizza shop, a Domino, that opened up a few months ago as well. But no, there's no other vehicle shop. Okay. But the functionality, I think personally, as an architect, I think it would function with no problem.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you. We'll proceed to speakers now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're going to unmute the speaker that is representing 901 to 905 O'Connor Drive.
Hi there, thank you. So as I mentioned, my name is Piero Minicucci. I'm representing the owners of 901 to 905 O'Connor Drive, the property directly adjacent to the subject property on the north side. We're deeply concerned that this application will negatively impact the 20+ residents who live in our building. As mentioned, as the speaker previous to me has mentioned, a lot of the property along the front of O'Connor is commercial. But most of them have residential on the top as well as the rear of the buildings. Our property has 20 units with 14 of them in the rear that would be sharing the same location as the adjustments that the applicant is making. So we're deeply concerned that it's going to impact those residents. We rent our entire property to Loft. It's a registered charity providing supportive housing and related services to vulnerable people with diverse needs. In particular, Loft operates their mental health and justice initiative from the property. That's a joint partnership between Loft, the Canadian Mental Health Association, Coma Health, who supports adults with mental health and cognitive issues, and HouseLink Community Homes, which is a housing provider to those with mental health and addiction issues. The main purpose of their initiative out of that property is to provide affordable housing to individuals with serious mental health issues. We're currently involved in the criminal justice system on nonviolent matters, who are homeless or at risk of being homeless, and who are likely to live safely in the community with the appropriate supports. We've had this relationship with Loft at this property. We've been the owners of the property adjacent to the subject property for many years as well. We've had this partnership with Loft for the past 20 years without any issues created in the community. Our location provides a nice, quiet, sheltered environment for the 20 residents. And we're concerned that this initiative of putting a garage right next to us is going to seriously impact that. The application being put forward is going to intensify the commercial and industrial nature of activities that are being carried on right adjacent to our residential property. Yes, there's other structures in the back of that laneway, but none of them are of a garage or mechanic nature. Most of them are extensions of residential parts of the building, or not nearly as intense as would a two-car garage being servicing by mechanic create. So we're concerned that by not respecting the space requirements that are set out in the bylaw, that it's going to create an overcrowded and chaotic work environment, and that's not going to provide the appropriate separation of activities between adjacent properties. As we outlined in our letter, we're concerned about the noise pollution that's going to be created. The garage is going to have power tools. The noise are going to permeate through the bedrooms adjacent to us. Also share that just north of us, one more property over, there's 44 condominiums that have been there. And to the east side of O'Connor, there's a whole residential string of houses that share that back laneway. So introducing a garage or a mechanic shop is not an insignificant issue here, and allowing for variances that would permit that are far from minor, in our opinion. The laneway, we've used that laneway many times as well. It's a narrow single laneway providing access to all the properties along that stretch of O'Connor. If you think about a garage that's going to be bringing service vehicles are going to be bringing cars into that area. Tow trucks are going to need to maneuver. They're going to have their reverse sounds applying as they're trying to maneuver cars into this lot. It's going to create an excessive amount of noise that I think is unfair for the residential neighbors on our property. The visual impact as well, I think it's going to be...
Sorry to interrupt, but I think you have to wrap up. You've passed the 5 minutes by some time. Thank you.
For sure. I think there's going to be a visual impact as well. Yes, there's other commercial activities, but none of the other properties have extensions that go nearly as far back to the back lane as is being proposed by this site. O'Connor Drive itself has been going through a beautification or renovation to beautify it.
So
I think this is basically slipping directly against.
We'll ask you to wrap up very quickly.
Okay. Final precedent setting. West side of O'Connor is industrial. East side that we're on is residential largely. We ask that those two not be mixed up. And finally, I just would like to reiterate, we're doing everything we can to help address all the major concerns: homelessness, mental health, all these different initiatives that we're helping provide and assist the city with. And now we have a project that's going to jeopardize that. I just ask the committee to take that into consideration when they're evaluating whether this is minor, whether it's consistent with the intention of the bylaws, and whether it's something that goes against basically what's attempted in the city. Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration.
All right, a few questions, and I'll try to do them very quickly. It sounds like a great supporting housing program. That's great, but you say there are 20 units essentially as available as part of your program, and 14 of them, they face the rear, and I guess I'm just trying to get in, do those residents then use that lane for, I don't know, exercise or walking? What's the...
They use, a lot of them use the back lot. There's picnic tables that have been set up. A lot of them use it as a resting place and just giving them the time to rejuvenate and relax. Not many of them have vehicles, so that entire back lot is basically used by them for relaxation and trying to get themselves back into society. So it's not used as your typical back parking lot.
All right, thank you. Members, I've kind of jumped in, but are there any comments or questions from this speaker who's part of the supportive housing project in this area? Nothing? Okay. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can probably go back to the
we'll go back to the applicant. Yes, okay.
Hi, it's me again, Pedro. As I mentioned, I live in the neighborhood, and I currently drive by that laneway quite some often. And so it's not narrow. It's not narrow. Sometimes I'm driving my car, another car is coming the opposite way, and there is room for two cars to pass. So I don't understand about narrow. There's garbage trucks use that laneway. So I'm not sure about what he's mentioning about noise. It's a pretty usable laneway, in my opinion. It's not only residential that backs them to that laneway. There is commercial, and there is garage doors. I'm not sure if being a garage use, but there are garage doors backing up to that laneway. I've taken some pictures. You guys can see that there are garage doors facing that laneway. In terms of circulation and cars not use, like I said, it's not a narrow laneway. My car is pretty small, but I can make a U-turn there, or a 3-point U-turn, no problem. So I don't think it would impact the neighborhood. I would actually make more use of that laneway. So there's actually more not used properly. That's what I mean. In terms of I respect the use on the north property. I understand that there are people living there and they need quiet or not so much noise, but the owner of this application he did mention that. He said something about respecting the bylaws uh, the noise bylaw. So it will be accommodating to regular business hours. So after hours, there would be no noise at all, right? So in terms of on it, in my personal opinion, as if I was living in that northern property, I would prefer actually seeing more in terms of action happening, so that I can be more, I guess, occupied in my mind. Like I would see, oh, what are they doing? What kind of car they're fixing today?
Okay.
So it'd be more entertaining for those users as well.
I just jump in, but I guess the issue is really you want a one-story, vehicle repair service station there. So they're going to be power tools and noise, etc.
Yes, but that happens in everywhere when there's a renovation as well. When there's a renovation and there's currently quite a few in the neighborhood, there's power tools, there's noise all the time. So that I don't understand about that. And doors will be closed, so the noise. There's always a maximum noise that we can do. So and we can always accommodate that as well.
Mr.
And
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes. Okay. That's fine for me. Another of our members wants to address you, sir. Go ahead.
Sir, I have a question. Maybe you could clarify a couple things for me. So right now with the plan as it is, the opening to the garage is going to be right up abutting the lane. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so when the garage is open and people are trying to exit, how will they make sure that they can see whether there's other vehicles traveling in the lane or people?
Well, there currently is a space there, a distance to the property line, and that's where the laneway starts. So the cars wouldn't be driving directly to the laneway. They would be coming out of the garage with the front of their car, and they can still look left and right. But another thing that we can do, we can provide, we can locate those mirrors that you locate on those, I don't know what they're called, the technical name, but the safety mirrors that can help to provide that to see if someone's coming the other way.
Am I wrong in understanding then that the vehicle access is 0 meters from the lot line?
When vehicle access, I guess it means to the property, right? So I think that's why it's the 0 meters. But the entrance to the building, you can see on the site plan, it's almost 3 meters. So it's 2.7 meters.
Okay, I can see the site plan. Thank you.
Yeah. So I see the confusion. That's why I understand why you're mentioning the 0 meters, but there is a distance between the end of the building and then the end of the property. So in my understanding, if you come out of the vehicle garage shop, you still have space to look left or right to see if there's incoming traffic or pedestrians. That people use that laneway also for walking as well. So in terms of traffic on we would make sure that no cars would park on that laneway, for example, even though it's not even permitted to park on that laneway. So it's a free laneway, so no cars
All right, thank
that
you.
would use it.
You answered my question. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
So no further questions from members. Let's take this into discussion. This is I find this one a difficult one. Yes, please, is there?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just make some observations. The person in opposition, I was reading the letter that they had, the correspondence that they'd submitted, and in it, they own the building but don't operate it. So one observation is that the operators of the building, this registered charity called Loft, and Canadian Mental Health Association, these are the folks that actually run this residential space. we've had no opposition from them, no comments from them at all. In addition, directly behind the said application property, there are a whole lot of residences, single-family homes, just to the east of the applicant's property. There's no opposition from any of them. So I'd just like to make a note of that we haven't heard from any of them. What we have heard from is the owners of the building, who in their first paragraph indicate that they're deeply concerned about the 20+ residents. And then it goes on to say, as well as negatively impacting their property value. So I'm not sure, that the opposition where it's coming from. Yeah. Having said all of that, I think this application is a very reasonable one. That entire area of O'Connor, the commercial properties at the bottom, and as the applicant has mentioned, there are a number of properties that you can actually see on a Google map south of this applicant's property, where there are extensions to the rear of the buildings with garage door openings for whatever purpose they use them. So I think this is a very reasonable application. It's a two hoist garage. So you basically have 2 cars in it at a time that will actively be worked on. There may be a couple more cars that would be on that site parked. So I do not see any downside to this. It's also encouraging local business. So I'm quite in favor of this application as it stands.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right. I'm looking at drawing a 0.4 and 0.5. And you can see that there's already a pattern of a similar development. And the applicant seems to be correct about the width of the laneway. It's a 2 directions laneway. It's not a 3 meters one. So I think in terms of size and scales and the massing, it is minor.
All right, I'll just wait a second here. So here, would you then please put forward a motion, and we'll do
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. I'd like to move a motion to approve. I don't believe there are any conditions attached to this application at all. So I'd like to move motion to approve.
Seconder for that motion, then? Okay. All right. All right. All in favor, then? All right. It's hard, difficult one, I thought. But we have unanimous approval. So, sir, you have your approval, the minor variances that you're seeking.
And through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chang, second that motion? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we've reached a break time, not too badly, about 25 after 1. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I know the staff need time during the lunch hour to check messages, etc.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll resume at 2:30.
All right, I think that will work for me. All right, folks, we're going to adjourn now for some lunch and follow-up, and we will resume with the afternoon applications then at 2:30 today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.